Compliment.
You abuse dogs, you fucking weirdo. You abuse dogs, you weirdo. Fuck Twitch, don't touch me. I didn't touch you. Good shit, yo. You smell like shit though. Take your dog out the cage, man. Let him breathe. Let your dog breathe, going. Bro. Animals deserve rights too. Hassan, is that your name? You fake fuck. Why would you abuse your dog? You know he abuses dog. You jack him?
I've seen this dog. He's a nice dog. Doesn't abuse anyone. Only people abusing are the ones around us right now.
Okay, in public, freedom of speech is an abuse? Freedom of speech is an abuse? Fuck Twitch and fuck you. Fuck them.
Well, you know, it is truly sad when men of the people, such as like Hassan there, when they actually go out into the people, a little uncomfortable, you know, not exactly a welcoming environment. I'll show you the whole clip later. It's bad. It's bad. The poor guy was just trying to spread a message of, well, I really don't know what he was trying to spread. It sounds kind of like the usual jargon. It doesn't make much sense, to be honest, but hey, if you listen to a song, it'll make sense, I'm sure. Maybe you can explain it to me then, and I'll get the whole picture, but, you know, until then, I have no idea what he was trying to do, but clearly a man of the people. Very, very expensive clothes, but still a man of the people. Which, you know, what kind of fucking, I'm sorry. I gotta say, what kind of fag runs around fucking in over $1,000 shoes and not shoes, the shoes, okay, you want to have some sweet kicks, I get it, but like the shirt, come on. I don't think I've ever spent even $100 on a shirt. So multiple hundreds of dollars on a shirt, then you're kind of stupid and gay and weird, but there's more reasons that for a song. Hello, I guess I'll get off that kick. I could go on there for hours. Yeah, this is going to be a rough one. I didn't think I was going to be covering what I have to cover today, but man, it's a public service. But we're going to start with the first top of the discussion because this was supposed to be on the last show, and the whole Hassan fucking situation has even gone even further off the rails now because of their little. Well, and when I say there, it's no longer just limited to Hassan anymore. Now, Uncle Chunk is involved because, well, he was super amped to be going to the Europe South by Southwest, which, if you're unfamiliar, it's kind of a. I mean, I once saw a panel with a bunch of fatties that were trying to talk about how angry they got when their doctor asked them what their weight was, and they didn't want to answer the question. Like that's pretty much it. You get the idea. It's a bunch of everything is a fucking issue for these people. Everything's problematic for these people. So that's about the extent of my knowledge of South by Southwest. I have no interest in learning any more either. But Chunk was planning to go, and so was Hassan, and I don't know what he was going to do there, but I know the last time Chunk was there, I think he was giving some speech. There was like maybe tens of people there, literally tens of people. I saw the audience. It wasn't much of anything, but they expect to see, you know. I mean, he's a worldwide phenomenon from the Young Turks, of course. They're looking forward to it, but now they're on this kick where, of course, Israel did it. It's Israel's fault, because it's always Israel's fault. But I call me crazy, but I think it might have something more to do with the whole Chinese funding of your anti-ICE, extremely violent riots that you were, you know, egging on, and then the whole Cuba thing. You know, that sure didn't help either when that was essentially admitted on camera to being funded by this Chinese multimillionaire. I think United States State Department is going to have a little bit of desire to keep a watchful eye on someone like that, if, you know, just, looking for some legal advice, I'm not the person to go to, but I would say that'd be a boundary. And then after that, I'll get into something, oh boy, because this is kind of bigger than just the issue, and there's something I was going to nip in the bud and make sure that we don't go anywhere closer to this shit than where we are now, and make sure that we relay the message of past sage-like advice on the subject. We're gonna do that now, because I said this to myself several times already. I'm going to do a full episode eventually on this. I'm not mentally ready for it, but yeah, it's one of those things. I remember there's a channel. Cecil McFly. I think, yeah. This chick does videos about mostly kind of like older people that had big followings and kind of went away, kind of people. And she did a actual series of videos on this subject, and 3 parts, where I think the 3rd part actually broke. Yeah, it did, because she did a video on the first 2, and then the 3rd one broke because one of the subjects in the video actually tried to come back, stupid enough to think that was going to work out, and he just basically, well, it's a long story. I'll get into it when we get into it, but yeah, this is, just warning you now. I know I'm not saying any particulars. I just want to make sure I put this out now. It's some fucking disgusting shit, so I'll make sure to key off of. And I'm not even getting into the really bad stuff today. I'm just getting into the surface level stuff and what's going on now, because it's bad enough with references to past events. So, yeah, I'm just gonna. I'll warn when it's getting into the graphic shit. So, and I'm not showing anything. I'm not even really describing anything to the point of being, extremely graphic or anything. But, yeah, this is like one of those things that you don't have repercussions after this. You don't not have people that get. There were people that went to jail, but there should have been more, and this should have been much more widely reported on, and it should have been more than just an internet thing, which I can understand why it was, but still. And that's why now in Los Angeles there's something very similar going on. So, well, not the reason, but it's kind of why the shit has gone as far as it has. So I'll just leave it at that. Anyway, back to the song. Why don't we start with that? Because let's just jump right in. Oh, let me get this out of the way first, because I forgot to turn the show off private, because after the last episode where I was about to fall asleep, thank goodness I didn't quite make it there before I shut the show off. But that was headed for disaster town. So yeah, luckily I managed to keep myself awake enough to turn it off. Thanks again, MLA. You really helped me out there. But yeah, that was a while ago. I've been meaning to do this show forever, but once again, I fell asleep. Last night when I was going to do the show, I fell asleep. Today I decided I was trying to do the whole early morning thing, but I don't think it's going to ever be early in the morning. I don't think it's going to be in the morning really at all. I think that today, about noonish here, that's not too bad, but like any sooner than that now, I don't think it's probably going to realistically end up being any earlier than this. At least not in terms of having a full roster of shit to talk about, because it's, what's the best way to put it? Well, I guess the best way to describe it is like when I first started doing the show, it wasn't as much of like today, always in the same day, there's always something going on. So you can always count on, for sure, there's something going to be going on every day now that you can talk about. So you got to get the last fucking bit of information every day. It just takes too long to get everything fucking pinned down, clipped, trimmed, and prepped for show to get it ready and only discuss what I want to talk about. So many people are talking about stuff now too that I gotta freaking get from a different source. I gotta go. There's still a handful of people that play full-on clips in their shows, but not many, man. So it's not that big a deal, but it does take a little bit more time. So anyway, the point is that any sooner than now, it's just not. I'm sleeping too much longer now to really, which is good. I mean, for a long time, my internal clock has been off by like a different amount every day. Like as I told the unrelated clock to the real clock. So not a good situation. And who knows if I'm even going to go to sleep at anything near an actual time. But anyway, where is a good start? Oh, I know the last show that actually went up, I remember I talked about Graham Plattner. I remember that because I think he looks like a mass murderer. Sorry, I think he does. He looks like the kind of guy. He does look like the kind of guy that go on a shooting spree. I can't help it. He just does. I can't. And he doesn't sound like the kind of guy you definitely wouldn't want him to be representing you in the United States Senate. I can say that for sure. This is a sort of side note. I don't want to go on that one yet. I did kind of discuss Thomas Massey a little bit. That was, whatever. I guess this is because I did show. I think I did show Hassan and his. Well, you know what? Screw it. If I still have it, I'll play that actually first because. I can't believe I already forgot, but I was prepared for all the jokes with. Yeah, that's right. Because somebody's gonna be chopping Hassan, but it's not gonna be. It's not gonna be any Looney Tunes characters. It's gonna be probably the DOJ or the State Department or whoever decides to investigate. But anyway. Or maybe it might be the guy who's funding him himself, because this guy probably expects, some return on investment. He wants the United States in his back pocket. Where is that damn? Oh, I think I put it in here. Yeah, because I did play it already. But oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, this is actually relevant. I think I will even. I'll go ahead and play this again, just because. We're kind of be going in fairly hostile, and I think it's just kind of a good idea to remind everybody like who we're talking about again, like because it's not like it's some kind of what would you say, like undeserved sort of creation. This is a guy who's really you're almost asking for a fucking case with the administration and the State Department if you're going on and you're saying this kind of shit every single live stream, and you don't expect that the federal government is ever going to be looking into what you're doing. You're kind of fucking dumb. You're really fucking dumb, to be honest. There's no way in hell. And I'm so fucking sick to death of the free speech argument. That's fine. You can use that if you want, but when you are actively, first of all, not only are you inciting people to get involved with violent mobs, you're being funded by a foreign backer as well. and from a rival nation, no less. That is, honestly, what more could you do to be fucking having people from the administration look at you? Sorry. Yeah, you have your free speech and all that, but you guys should be very aware of this. There's this little thing called insurrection. Oh my God, I can't believe. But then again, you guys never use it in the right context, so I guess I kind of have to explain this. It's for, actually when you are openly hostile toward the government of your country and you're trying to either overthrow it or supplant it with a different one. And by a whole by all accounts, it sure as fuck seems like that's what you're trying to do. Open calls for impeachment. You have freaking what's that? Freaking weirdo congressman. What the hell's his name? Sri Tanadar. You got him out there fucking calling for impeachment every 5 seconds. And you want some of the most ridiculously extreme, almost cartoonish fucking people to be future House and Senate members for representing, the United States in who knows where, just random states. There's all these fucking weirdos running. Like, I'm sorry, but if that screams a little insurrection to me, a little bit more than some people on Capitol Hill being ushered in by a bunch of FBI fucking plants that were there to freaking encourage people to go in and, well, they attacked police officers. Yeah, a handful of them did. What happened during Black Lives Matter? I forgot. What was all that about? I can't really remember. What happened during Black Lives Matter?
Black Lives Matter was founded by a bunch of fat black radical.
Ah, yeah, that's right. That's Black Lives Matter. And they also torched a bunch of cities and whole states almost, for that matter. They torched some police departments, some courthouses, and killed some people, including a former cop and probably some current cops. Constantly had slogans talking about killing cops. I mean, that was a little thing that the left was very, very strongly backing, as well as just the whole defund the police movement in general. So sorry, but I can't say that fight like hell from the president versus blowing up or torching cop precincts and courthouses. One of these things is a little bit more intense than the other. And I know in the twisted mindset of a leftist, they're going to say, yeah, Trump's saying fight like hell, that's way worse. Okay, yeah, of course. Because people are so stupid, they need the president of the United States to tell them what to do in every situation. I guess that explains why you guys do such stupid shit, because Biden didn't tell you to do anything. So, but anyway, so I'm sorry. I can't help but be insulting right now. I just can't. I'm too riled up. In any case, we were going to just quickly look at this because regardless of the situation, once again, like I said, there's some people you can kind of look past and they're not really that big of a deal. So you're just like, yeah, they're not really relevant. Who cares? Let them say what they want. This guy said the following shit and said it usually backed up several times or repeated several times. So let's go through a list of greatest hits, shall we? Because that's kind of the crux of the issue, I guess. So hold on just a second. Go here, and audio's on. Okay. Oh, cancel that. And then okay. All right, and here we go.
Lesbians.
Actually wrote about this, and it was a great video where you talked about, someone has to do it. See, when I say that, everyone knows exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
Which is, I think that shows that there's a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, and untapped potential, untapped revolutionary potential, as a matter of fact.
America deserved 9/11, dude. I'm saying it. We totally brought it on ourselves, dude. Holy.
If you cared about Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott.
Well, my understanding is that the property owners who have properties there choose just not to rent it at all.
Yeah, kill them. Kill those motherfuckers and murder those motherfuckers in the street. Let the streets soak in their red capitalist blood.
Left-wingers, liberals, you need to be showing your opponent's guts on there, okay? You need to be gutting them. You need to be shanking these motherfuckers and letting their intestines just ride on stage. What the is this shit, man? Slice them up.
Regardless of your background, any kind of Zionist tendency should be treated in the same way as being a rabid neo-Nazi. Doesn't matter if
rapes happen on October 7. Like, that doesn't change the dynamic for me even this much.
But there are baby settlers as well. There are babies in the settlement.
Oh, so yeah, stand-up guy, real stand-up character. Anyway, so that's kind of like, you know, any any sort of mercy you would grant this guy. I'm sorry, I don't really give a shit. Whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. So let's go into story time, and kind of discuss what's happened. So when he was first indicted, when he first got the indictment, and he was going and crying like a little bitch on stream because he was surprised, I guess, for some reason. After all that, he did a small little segment, and it's going to be talked about in this first one. I'm gonna play two. They're fairly long clips, but they're definitely worth it. Both are from The Blaze. One of them's from Glenn Beck. The other one is from Liz Wheeler, and both of them are discussing the same sort of event, but these were from different times during the day. So Glenn is first, Liz is second. By the time the second one came out, had come out, a lot of the information that was surrounding this from the point and the position of United States DOJ into the what I would safely say is probably the prime suspect of the case, or the chief target of the case, I guess would be a better way to describe it. A lot more information had come out about him, his operation, what he had done in the past, what he's been doing recently, and after this, at this point, Hassan had basically come out and implemented him straight up in front of essentially anyone who was watching his stream, that he pretty much admitted that the guy was probably the target, which I would guess, if I had to put my money on it, I would say he is absolutely correct. But there's a reason why. Now, you may remember this name, Neville Royce Singham. The first time I heard him mentioned was actually Bill O'Reilly. Surprising. He was the first person I ever heard mention him. But he did correctly point out that this is a guy who kind of is sort of what you would regard as something like the Soros sort of kind of individual, who really wealthy individual, very anti-America, very anti-capitalist, very pro-communist, I think, to be honest. Like really pro anything that's anti-America, anything that's anti-capitalist, anything that's anti-West, anything that's anti-Christian, like very extreme in terms of his rhetoric and his beliefs against the U.S. sort of general sort of society and political system. And his method for his chief method, are you ready for this? His chief method for trying to interfere with U.S. society was funding nonprofits into action in, and this is what Bill O'Reilly was mentioning in his point, because this was long before Hassan was indicted when he mentioned him. He was talking about him in the case of things like the college campus takeovers that were going on, that were what the fuck? Oh, ice cream sandwich. College campus takeovers that were targeting Jewish students, tagging Jewish students, celebrating the October 7th attacking, celebrating Hamas, etc., etc. And there'd been a lot of conversation. I remember Ted Cruz was talking about it. A lot of pundits were talking about it, and it was kind of a point that people were mentioning, and finally kind of looking at the whole setup of everything and looking like, man, for a group of college students who are probably pretty disorganized in a lot of cases, not all, but a lot of them, they all have the same tent. They all have the same sort of matching signs. They all have the same matching clothing and this and that. Different little articles of, like almost like promotional shit. And the suggestion was that this is not grassroots. This is not just organic. There's something about this that is being funded or coaxed or encouraged or promoted by someone. And nobody really had any kind of idea who, if it was a group or if it was an individual or where they would be, or from the U.S., from another country. What are we talking about here? When Bill talked about Neville Singham, there was a kind of understanding that, wow, he really does seem like somebody who would be deeply involved in attempting to ferment some kind of anti-America sentiment in the country that would be over. And China has been open. I mean, it's been fairly widely discussed by just about every major organization that covers this shit that China has been essentially slowly sending people attempting to influence higher education and learning and areas of the tech sector, areas of medicine, areas of even arms and military and defense. So just different sectors of the U.S. government and of the economy and of institutions even, with a very, very pro CCP, very anti-West sentiment, and this had been going on for a very long time now, but this was really the first time we were seeing it by a direct individual and not like kind of just a nebulous idea that China's government or China's leaders in some capacity are promoting this idea or encouraging this idea. No, in this case, we have somebody who has a shit ton of money, is invested in the Chinese, whatever the equivalent of the stock market is in China, is invested there, which means just by that alone, I doubt your average Joe in the United States can just go over or even from his home, just take some money and go and put it in the Chinese stock market and actually see some kind of return on investment or something. I doubt that is anything that is just open to, as opposed to the stock market in the United States. Even like, no, you can't just do it if you're a foreign national, but to the American citizen, even if you don't have a ton of money, you can still invest in the stock market pretty easily. It's not even for just an average Chinese citizen. You got to be pretty. First of all, you got to have a shit ton of money for China standards, and you also have to be, someone who's not going to be. If you pissed off the regime in any way, shape or form, no, you're not going to be in that. But anyway, and the other part of this is I don't remember everywhere he's been, and his parents were like where they were born and where they studied. But it was very. It reminded me a lot of like when you hear from. Stories about like Zoran Mamdani's parents, kind of like those very activist people from the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Very, very, very almost militant activist level, but not to the level of doing anything like that I've heard yet that was like extremely noteworthy. Probably operated pretty under the radar until now. But anyway, so that was where I first heard the name. And when Hassan mentioned that they were probably going after Singham when he was on stream talking about his indictment, I thought, like, what the hell? It seemed kind of weird, but I wasn't putting the dots together like they are at the Blaze. It was way more like, because honestly, I don't know nearly as much. I don't have any contacts with anybody in government or anything like that, obviously. But when I find stuff out like this, it's obviously, okay, something interesting is going on here. This is pretty crazy. How about we fucking dig as deep as we can to see what the fuck's going on here. And this is actually fucking pretty damn consequential when you understand the whole scope of this, because, man, I think they're right when they discussed it this way. I think this was deliberate. I think this was a move very, very calculated, actually, because here's the thing. I'll say this part now and then we'll just play it. I don't want to talk about the whole thing, but this is all stuff you should know before going in. They don't discuss all this in detail right at the start, but they do go into some detail where nice to know that this guy has been mentioned before, and he's directly implicated by Hassan openly stating on live stream. And this is what's so remarkable about this whole thing. Streamers today are really like, anything that I say on here, I recognize, okay, anybody that watches this is going to be able to, they can see this and see what I think. I'm being pretty straightforward and honest with everybody. Like, you just have to take it that for, if you don't believe me, you don't believe me. I can't make you believe me. But I can say, I think it's fairly obvious. It's about as off the cuff and as straightforward and openly honest as I can be on a show, and be able to prove that, like, by any way I'm stating these things. So I know going in, anything I say is going to be taken as, basically the word I'm saying is what I believe, and that's open for anybody, from law enforcement to the civilian to the president of the United States and on down. Like, anybody that watches this, it's going to be open and visible to everybody. The way that people kind of just glibly take that, and in some cases, especially when it comes to people like Hassan that are super fucking arrogant, just overly arrogant about everything, think they're totally untouchable, and it's like it's kind of like they never grew up, like they kind of never really learned the idea of consequences, because they never had any consequences. They've never been disciplined for anything. I can almost, like, at least nothing that was significant enough to be what it's supposed to be, a deterrent from ever doing something that you would consider to be, like, if you were taught at an early age, like, that when you act out, do something wrong, there's going to be consequences, that lesson will stay with you. If it's done correctly. Now, if you abuse a kid, that's not going to actually help with anything. If you let a kid just do whatever the hell they want and never punish them, that's going to do something as well. But most people grow up getting a strong understanding that I don't want to do anything that is going to be doing something that is harmful, or just like, because even if I don't care about anybody else, I care about myself. I don't want to get in trouble. And the way people like this act, it's like that's not even a factor. Nobody's going to touch me anyway. Where in the hell do they get this fucking mentality from? I guess it's from the fact that, for a while, I guess, and being, I hate to say it, as old as I am, I remember when the internet was kind of a more fringe culture that was not in the slightest something that everybody understood. Older generations usually kind of just dismissed the internet as just like, oh yeah, that damn internet, okay, yeah. Like, they didn't really have a good grasp of what we were talking about when we said online, let me find this and that. But that was a long, long time ago. And I would have thought that by now that has gone away. So I don't know if that really is even the what's at play here, and I really don't know what it is, other than just flat out arrogance at the idea that I'm smarter, or I'm not doing anything bad, or this is really the worst one. It's like, this is just my free speech. There's things you can say when you're speaking freely that could implicate you, that not necessarily are damning in their own right, but here's the key: can give somebody who knows the law and knows, as it pertains to somebody speaking, giving somebody the impression of something that could be true, if there's probable cause that would lead someone to believe that what you're saying could be linked to some sort of criminal activity, like whether it would be like, robbing a liquor store, or whether it would be getting funded by foreign-backed adversaries of the United States. Basically, there's good faith cause to believe that if you were to take a subpoena to the courts, it would get approved because this person said this, and this on their show when they're speaking to their audience. Now, obviously, the target audience is not the current U.S. administration, but they're free, open platforms that members of the administration can just watch if they go watch this channel, or members of law enforcement, or members of DOJ, people who are in with these associated people. How in the hell is this never like something anybody takes for like a fact anymore? It's just like a glib, well, nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. Oh, whatever. I'll just say. It's like, I don't know when that really started. And it is most definitely something that is far more of a thing that thrives on the left, because if you remember during the last administration, of course, another thing I can't understand, why in the hell are so many people on the right so critical and act like Trump didn't do anything when, okay, they've stopped the mass surveillance and the FBI, essentially watching everybody online and attempting to get their political leanings and take them into account when they decide to charge. Like, there was a time period not that long ago when if you said the wrong thing or you pissed off the administration, you said something that they didn't like, they not only were going to take your account down and take down the information and take down all your posts, they were talking about having this lunatic woman who was going to head this new agency with the department that was going to be looking for what they labeled as disinformation and take it down because it would be harmful to spread that. And that was one of the most insidious things they did during the whole Biden administration. And everybody kind of just says, oh, yeah, whatever. There was an early morning raid that was based on a guy who was a pretty avid gun collector. He'd collected guns for a long time and was targeted by the last administration. They didn't want to catch him when he wasn't at home. They didn't want to catch him at work where he was likely to not have a firearm. They wanted him to be at home. They wanted it to be early morning. They wanted to catch him off guard. And they got all of that. They also, by the way, put tape over the Ring door camera so you couldn't see anything that was being recorded from their surveillance. And I don't know if they ever released their own body cam footage, but went in, and this guy naturally had no idea that they were watching him. They didn't, explain to anyone that, they didn't explain to his lawyer, they didn't explain to his wife, they didn't explain to anybody around that knew him that they were trying to get a hold of him. They needed him to come in for some questions, blah, blah, blah. It seems like they're counting on this guy to wake up in a panic and potentially be the most heightened sense of danger that he could be in, and also fear for his wife, fear for his home and property, and kicked his door down and busted in, and he naturally thought it was an intruder and grabbed a firearm, prepared to confront the intruders, and the intruders happened to be, DOJ agents, and shot him in the head, shot him dead. That was absolutely unnecessary. None of that needed to happen. Like I said, they knew where he worked. They knew where he lived. They knew his wife's number. They knew his home number. They knew everybody. They could have done any of that, but because they do all this stuff, like try to say, oh, this guy's a flight. How the heck do you know he was planning to leave? Like, what are you talking about? So, long story short, that's another one, along with, the infamous case of the Houck family where there were several children at home, the wife was at home, father was at home, who's in an attempt to defend his son from a bunch of counter-protesters to their pro-life demonstration. He started yelling at his son, and we're talking, like 8, 9-year-old kid standing there, and this fucking pro-abortion lunatic probably was shouting in his face at a kid, at just a little kid. And the dad naturally shoved the guy, said, get away from my son. He didn't say this part, but take your weird fucking ass away from him. And that guy decided, I'm going to get this guy real good. So the FBI showed up at his house and arrested him at gunpoint in the morning in front of his family and dragged him out in cuffs to the car. And he had offered to turn himself in already. Now, this is a little different because he knew that there was a situation where he was being required to be. I think he was fully subpoenaed to appear, and rather than allowing him to turn himself in as per his attorney's instructions, they came in at like 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 in the morning, and that was a little show they put on because that was what they did the same for public figures. I think they did that for Giuliani. They did that for the guy. They did that for James O'Keefe. That when he had Ashley Biden's diary, he had attempted to give it back to Ashley Biden several times, and they never would allow James any kind of date to return it or anything. They wanted the public spectacle. They wanted the fucking video. Same thing with the Mar-a-Lago raid. They wanted the optics. That was what they were after. So, just going into detail, and sorry, it's a little unrelated, but the point is that whatever's going on in the administration right now, this is a lot more professional than it was in the last administration. So, when it comes to speech, I mean, once again, we're talking about things that, and we're talking about things that are said online, and for that matter, but we're talking about things that are said that are way more egregious than this, and yet they're investigating. And they subpoena him, and they know they subpoena him. And he wasn't arrested at his home in the morning. He wasn't dragged out of his house in his underwear. He didn't have news cameras outside of his home prepared for this, like so many other people did in the last minute. No. This is what's happening to him. They know they're preparing to do this, and they have all the things set up for this to go out this way, and they allow the situation to play out. And pure and simple, that's what happened. The last administration did it very, very differently, and I would suggest completely. I mean, if it's not unlawful, or if it's not a good faith, just effort, at the bare minimum, this is something what I would think is totally unnecessary and would have at least been something you would have been reprimanded for, if not outright fired for behaving this way. When, if, and it's a big if it wasn't encouraged by the DOJ at the time, and I think that was obviously the situation, but I can't prove it, so like with any direct evidence that anybody said this, so I can't say that for sure, but I can say, yeah, that's probably what happened. But anyway, so with everything laid out on the table, let's get on to what did Glenn Beck have to say about this situation? Because here's our jumping off point, and this is really interesting to see. This part of the whole discussion is really crazy, but this is really interesting to see because this is the first bit of information that came out that maybe, just maybe, the situation might not be as just about Hassan. This is about something much bigger than Hassan, which, yes, there's a lot of things out there far more serious and far more important to worry about than Hassan Piker. I know, it's crazy. But anyway, maybe Hassan would disagree, but here's Glenn Beck discussing this when it was first starting to break. This was maybe a different kind of, a much bigger issue and much more important issue than we thought it was originally. So anyway, let's go ahead and hit this.
But now we find out. I mean, we've known who this guy was. Let me see if we can play some of the old clips. Do you have Hassan Piker 1?
Red Capitalist Blood?
He's going to play everything I just played. Oops.
No.
Good. Okay,
All
never
right,
mind.
well,
I didn't think that was it.
This is the guy who has been on saying, capitalist blood needs to run through our streets. America deserved 9/11.
Everything I just played, yeah.
He's justified the October 7th massacre. He praises China, Chinese communism, Mao Zedong. I mean, you name it, this guy is on the wrong side of history.
To say the least, yeah.
And, peaceful movements.
Really wrote about this, and
Oh, no,
there's a
they are
great
gonna play
video where
something.
you talked about,
Oh,
someone
this
has
might be
to
the only
do it.
one though, because
See, when I say that, everyone knows exactly what I mean.
I got this clip. You see the
Which
background
is-
on it.
I think that shows that there's a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, and untapped potential, untapped revolutionary potential, as a matter of fact.
America deserved 9/11.
Oh no, I got the
dude.
whole thing from this
I'm
one.
saying it.
Okay, we can skip this
totally
actually. Hold
brought it
on.
ourselves, dude. Holy sh-
If you cared about Medicare fraud
see.
or
showing you're gutting them. Letting this shit
rabid Neo.
Anyway.
Oh, is
anyway,
it? There we go. Hey, perfect.
We find out now that
Sorry,
should
I forgot
concern
that.
every American, doesn't matter what side you're on. The Cuban regime wanted him in Cuba, not just as a tourist or a curious American. According to Hassan himself.
Hold on, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention the most important part. This is all centered around the Cuba trip once again, because you remember when I played that clip. I do have it here. I'm not going to play it, but if there was a refresher that was needed, he was very happy to be promoting the Cuban government and doing basically what anybody would look at and consider to be a sort of slanted view, not in any way representative of the experience of being a Cuban citizen living under the current regime in Cuba or any other regime in the recent history for that matter. But he speaks so glowingly about Cuba and about their government when most of the people there they won't say it out loud because they can't say it out loud. If they say it out loud, they're gonna get a bullet. Because once again, hallmark of a totalitarian regime that he fucking advocates for, of course. These people don't take too kindly to, first of all, freedom of speech, and secondly, any criticism whatsoever of their fucking precious regime that they spent so long preparing. But he doesn't really care about, he's not interested in the Cuban people. He's not interested in helping Cubans. He's interested in attacking America because it's all our fault that this happened to them. We're the reason that they're in the shape they're in. So blame America first. It's just such a perfect name for these people. The Blame America First crowd is so strongly against America in just about every way possible. Anything that is successful or beneficial to America has to be criticized, has to be taken down, and anything that highlights the suffering of any other nation other than America, you have to spotlight that. You have to highlight that because it's important in your crusade to take down America. That you show, look at all these people suffering. It's because of American interventionism in all these different places around the world. It's like, okay, yeah, because they have nothing to do with it, right, Hassan? It's not. People have no control over anything. They just do what people tell them to do, and they do what America tells them to do, and they just want them to be like. I swear, the infantilization of populations of people around the world. I mean, that's how you get a Somali population who are all on, like 80% of them are on social welfare of some kind because they are here to mooch off of the government. They are not here in any way to, assimilate to American culture or with American people or in any way, shape, or form contribute to American society. No, they're here to fucking mooch and have an easy kickback life where they don't have to do anything. In that case, I think for the most part, we're dealing with, as outside of the terrorists that exist in that country, for the most part, I think we're just dealing with people who are just outright lazy as fuck and want the quickest route to not having to do as much as possible, as opposed to someone who's openly malevolent for a higher purpose. Now, there may be people that can use them for a higher purpose that is a little bit more anti-America, but the Somali people themselves, like Ilhan Omar is a great example of this. Like, she doesn't give a shit because it keeps her in office when she helps out her own people that came from another country. She doesn't care if they're in any way trying to, be a benefit or a drain to the United States economy. She just is going to utilize any handouts she can and protect anyone she can from prosecution or deportation as possible, because that helps get her elected. And that's what really the Democrat Party is obsessed all about, and that's why it's always Trump's fault for everything. That's why Blame America First exists, because God knows it's like we have to come up with a way to infantilize people and tell them, well, if there was just more, we just gave more, if there's more money for these people to do the, no. That just makes a bigger welfare state. That does not encourage people to get off of anything. It doesn't help the American people who are taxpayers. No, that's not how that works. Now, anyway, I forgot to even mention that whole point, because that really is, from a lot of people's perspective, what that's about. But as far as going to another country and going to the lengths, which, of course, Cuba isn't, like, it's not across, the Atlantic or the Pacific Ocean to get to another continent, and it's an island in Gulf of America, but it's not like it's super far away. It's a trip, but it's not like it's a massive, super long trip. And even if it was like you're going somewhere, and what's the point of going there? Oh, propagandize the American people to believe that it's us that are responsible for this, but you can talk about how great it is anyway, and it's like it's a mixed, like, mangled up message in the first place. But every single way that they word things or they describe things is always to knock America, and it's always to promote whatever foreign group of people they're focusing on. It has nothing to do with anything else but that one goal. So, and what's the higher purpose in that? Well, of course, to suggest that America's interests are always negative. They are always to dominate or to subjugate another population, which, once again, where do we fit into this? I'm sorry. Where are all the American people or American, agents or governmental officials doing something there that would be of a oppressive nature to the American or to the Cuban people? It's like, what is the point? What are you trying to say? We went there and did what to, which in the case of Cuba, like, I don't know. There's a lot of civil wars and unrest that came about due to, I guess the best I can say is, like, it's to glorify another system of government in lieu of how terrible and evil capitalism and a Western-style democratic republic is by comparison to these regimes, because it's not a fake system where the same group of people wins every time, which is ultimately what the Democrat Party wants. They want to have every election go their way in perpetuity for the rest of time, because they want to be in power and they want always to be the ones to dictate policy, culture, laws, everything. They want to be in control of it all. And that's why the right is, at the same time, while you can find some hope in a lot of their messaging, when you look at just your average Republican political figure, sometimes I wonder, do you even get it? Do you even understand? You're saying the thing, but what, when you get there, like, what are you doing to stop it? Anything? Do you even recognize it anymore, or did that lobbyist money come in there too quick? Wait, if there's any group, once again, that's a bigger threat to the United States, it's not fucking AIPAC. God damn. I swear, I'm so tired of hearing about Israel's lobby. Which, by the way, AIPAC is not Israel's lobby. It's a group of Americans who are, a little bit more fond of the Israeli people than your average American citizen is, who basically, what do you call it, advocate for the state of Israel as opposed to a different cause, like any other lobbyist would be, involved in. Is Israel's American lobby, and that's why I've, in the past, I've talked about this. I compared them to the NRA, because there was always some group of leftists, and it's a little bit different, obviously. The NRA was directly related to American constitutional-based rights as opposed to an American organization for people that were advocating for another state based on its shared interest. But at the same time, at least those are about American interests and not about partisan wish lists and ideological fantasy that has no basis in reality if you're actually following the Constitution to what it is they're trying to accomplish. Like, by its very nature, the Second Amendment was being advocated by the NRA because it was that was what it was founded to do. But AIPAC, similarly, is going to be, by contrast, trying to draw similarities and connections between the United States and Israel because they believe our interests are aligned. And there's an argument to be made where, yeah, we do a lot of trading. There's a lot of technology, and I've talked about this before. There's a lot of technology. There's a lot of medical advancements. There's a lot of new discoveries in technology and all kinds of different fields, military, that comes from Israel, and that we benefit from by being in a open partnership with the Israeli government and the Israeli people, as well as the religious link between Judeo-Christian values of the two countries, and obviously there would be that link as well. But once again, these are all things that make sense. And when you talk about something that is demonizing the U.S., that's more of a leftist strategy. Instead of finding something that represents the United States and its values and its founding and current values and the world when it's standing for its benefit, it's reduced to being pro-Israel, it's pro-colonizer, it's they're Zionist shills. It's like, okay, all right. What are you a shill for? Oh, yeah, Cuba and China. Okay, wow. Yeah, big step up. Big step up. Anyway, so I just, these people get on my nerves so bad when they do this shit, because it's just such a fucking horrible, it's such a horrible way to describe it. But people who are stupid fall for it. So I guess that's the benefit. So anyway, go back.
The Cuban government reached out through the embassy contacts and essentially said, hey, if internet access is the problem, we'll provide it.
Okay, let's play that cut, please.
The Cuban government actually hit my contact from the
Now
embassy
here, this is key.
and told him that if the only thing stopping us from coming to Cuba was the consistent internet access, we can make it happen.
Yeah, Cuba is sick.
Wait,
the government reached out to you.
So yeah, of course. It's well, not reached out to me. There's there's a middleman there. Because I had a doctor from Cuba. Cuba does this thing called medical missions, and they've been doing it since I believe
my God,
the 70s, and it's incredibly successful. They have a massive, very robust medical program because kind of they have to. Because
wow, yeah, Glenn's laughing too.
Yeah,
regime
by the United
this
States
is
of America,
amazing.
Rest of the world thinks is abhorrent, except for America and Israel that keep consistently vetoing it over and over again.
So,
okay, hold on, just a second. Once again, this goes back to what I was talking about before. He's saying this. He knows he's on a live stream. He knows everyone in the world can watch this. And look at what he was just admitting. And you remember what he did on that Cuba trip? Does anybody remember any medical aid that was brought that Hassan was talking? Does Hassan mentioning anything about the medical industry at all? Was he delivering medical aid? Was he talking to patients of certain doctors or certain technologies from the West that came to aid the people of Cuba or anything? I don't remember that part. Maybe it's just me, but I remember a whole hell of a lot of propagandizing and a bunch of damning of America and their inhuman way of treating the Cuban people. And yeah, okay. What about that medical work, Hassan? That ever started on this trip? And even if it's not medical, how about anything? How about a fucking goddamn bag of crackers? That would be at least humanitarian to some extent. They're starving. You didn't bring anything. You were more interested in whether you had an internet connection or not. And if you remember, I think it says it all. To watch that clip, they might show it on here. I'm not sure, but that clip from the hotel they were staying in, Code Pink and all those little bastards. When they're at the hotel and you see the hotel, it's lit up like a fucking Christmas tree. And then they turn the camera in every direction. It's pitch black everywhere. Except for Hassan and his little buddies, you know. They get to stay at the one place that has power, internet access, hot running water. The Cuban people, fuck them. But we can stay in you know, this hotel where we got everything we need. He was bitching a little bit about the internet not being fast enough to stream. I swear. This fucking guy. And he wonders why the American government might have restricted his visa. Good fucking God. Lord help me. Oh. Keep going. How stupid can you be, man? Oh my God.
They want him.
Why?
Now why? This is a communist dictatorship, a regime that jails dissidents, kills them, censors
free speech, a regime that has survived decades through propaganda, intelligence operations, anti-American agitation. You've got hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Cubans living here in the United States that escaped this monstrous regime, and they wanted to facilitate one of America's biggest online political voices. Wow. I mean, the question every American should ask is why? Why would that?
Who knows, Glenn? Yeah.
Foreign governments, don't invest in people accidentally, especially hostile governments. Cuba's not calling me and going, "Oh, you want a landline? We get you a landline. Get your voice up." That's not happening. Okay. Let me be really clear on something here. That does not make Hassan Piker a Cuban spy. Okay.
No, of course not.
More of a useful idiot.
Yeah.
That's lazy and stupid, and that's not what this is about. This is about influence networks. This is about how foreign states cultivate narratives inside free society.
Yes.
And America's been asleep at the switch while this has been happening for years.
That's the most
Soviet Union
infuriating.
understood this. China understands this. Iran understands this. Cuba understands this. Hell, America, our CIA, we probably invented it. And here's where
that's what's really frustrating is that, despite our position in the world as the most powerful country on the planet, really, there's so many people who are absolutely just dumb as a fucking box of rocks, or they at least play and pretend like they are when they're doing their little online speeches about how evil America is. They forget that, oh yeah, we've got a ton of enemies out there that would love someone like me who talks so negatively about his own country without any hint of, because of course there's issues in the country, of course there's problems in the country. I would argue a lot of them are started by people like Hassan. But regardless, we are still, for example, Canada right now is a fucking mess. Why? Well, they elected after Justin Trudeau, when a lot of people thought that, this is a time where they're going to elect someone a little bit different, a little bit more pro-Canada, and a little bit less strong on the progressive politics, like maybe that Pierre Poilievre guy, or maybe whatever. Nah, let's just elect Mark Carney, and have this guy run the country, who talks about Donald Trump almost as much as Hassan does, and his biggest critics do, and we'll blame everything. Like, it was like the trucker convoy. There were people in Canada so convinced that it wasn't the work of the Canadian government, it wasn't the work of completely radical, progressive lunatics under Justin Trudeau, who were demanding a totalitarian fucking country based on the really around COVID. Basically, they were trying to really propagandize the people, but they just could not believe, because they have state-funded media there, And state-funded media is not going to say anything negative, but a lot of Canadians grew up at a time where the news was trustworthy to an extent, at least enough to believe the general point. And now it's more like a public, like public radio in the United States or public network in whatever public broadcast is in the United States that always is so anti-Republican, anti-Trump, anti-conservative, anti-Christian, anti-America, really. That's so overwhelmingly covered by public network, public broadcasting that that's all you get. That's the only thing that appears on the network, and that's the only thing that appears on Canadian Canadian media. And since they grew up kind of with that belief, they can't bring themselves to believe that that's the case. So what do? Well, they fall for it. They have no choice but to believe it, and believe that it's not the Canadian government trying to propagandize their country, their citizens. And it must be because Donald Trump was so strongly against Canadian policy, I guess, that he was the one who organized or helped to organize some sort of influence over the trucker convoy, and that was why they were arresting the truckers and preventing the convoy from... It was the most weird, ridiculously stupid way to explain away any kind of really... you want to talk about authoritarian? That was an authoritarian crackdown. You shut down the bank accounts of anyone associated with the convoy, shut down their access to, any public service, arrest them, jail them, charge them. Like, it was the strongest act I've ever seen Canada take against their own population for speech they didn't like or a message they didn't like against their leaders, who, by the way, if you don't remember Justin Trudeau, he was kind of a fucking dumbass joke, but yeah, I'm sure he wasn't to the Canadian people. He was fucking really a threat to a lot of them and a lot of their historical freedoms that the country has had. But that's why, once again, comparatively speaking, the United States has, like at least for now, we still have a constitution that is still holding up enough to protect us from any kind of action like that. But I mean, it's constantly being chipped at by people on the left and left-wing activists, left-wing politicians that want to suggest that, well, the First Amendment is only for it's fine, but when you're spreading misinformation, that's dangerous, and that could be used to harm people. So okay, that doesn't stop the validity of the First Amendment, though, and let's not also forget that, when it comes to religion, that's also part of the First Amendment. So when Don Lemon rushes in to stop with his little buddies to stop a Sunday service because of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, and he plays the journalist part, and even when the priest of the church is sitting there saying, I would actually like you guys to leave, you just stand there and still ask questions. Yeah, it's reasonable to believe that you're interfering with the free practice of religion and violating the rights of everyone in that building. Therefore, the government going to, basically attempt to, in some way, show that there's some consequence for what you do. No, that's not because you're black, Don. It's not because you're fucking black. It's because you're a fucking disgrace. You're a washed up nobody that never had anything really worth listening to. And the blanket defense of, I'm here as a journalist, cover, that doesn't seem like the reason, Don. I'm sorry. It seems more like you're here to shine a spotlight on how evil ICE is. Which is exactly why you're there. And maybe, just maybe, showing you meeting up specifically with the protesters, being greeted and welcomed by them, and taking part in everything except for the discussion of exactly where you were going. Like, that's, I know we're going to a church. I know we're going to a destination to go there and participate in a protest. Not even participate. Going there to a protest. It's going to be about the unfair treatment of ICE, and we can't know where they're going. It's like, okay, that's nice way of trying to protect yourself, but like, that's not I mean, luckily for him and the left-wing political machine of the non-stop news that comes up and demonizes anybody that I mean, of course it's probably because of racism, or it's probably because they just can't stand Don Lemon's like his investigative reporting. Oh my god. I mean, they'll write it off as anything they have to, but at the end of the day with this sort of kind of shit, you know what it's about. They know what it's about. And they get off because people put so much pressure. I feel so... It's really hard seeing this kind of thing because it's disgusting as hell when it happens. And people get away with so fucking much because of the pressure that they can utilize whenever they use that fucking... They call it circling the wagons. They call it hive mind. I call it the Democrat phalanx. I've talked about that before. Literally, they close ranks around whatever it is they're trying to defend. And anytime that happens, you can bet your ass that every single person who's left-leaning even a little bit is going to believe, oh, I've got to go defend this, and rush to the defense of whatever it is. It doesn't matter at all the circumstances behind it. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. It doesn't matter, like, what it is they're disrupting. It doesn't. None of that stuff matters. The only thing that matters is the left asked it, therefore it shall be. And I can't stand that shit. And when I look at this administration in this term, as much as I like what they're trying to do, and I grant them all the credit in the world, I can't help but wonder, like, what would happen if they weren't so fucking on the nose every single time? Like, they have people watching, constantly scrutinizing every single move of this administration to find a weak point that they can target to constantly go after Donald Trump and his administration. It's crazy. It's absolutely lunatic. And these people are, like, this ideology is so intensely focused. I'm sorry, it's dangerous. I mean, the man's had, how many people try to kill him now? And yet still everything's his fault. Like, and all this shit about lowering the temperature by, well, Trump has to do it first or we're not. Grow the fuck up. Jeez. It's like, no, he doesn't have to do anything first. Maybe, just maybe, you should do something that leftists never seem to understand is important. And be, what do you call it? The example. Jesus. I'm sorry, my Lord. It's like, what actions need to be taken that will satisfy you to because I guarantee Trump comes out, says his piece, condemns what he condemns that was wrong, and everyone on the left is upset with. They say, yeah, that was I mean, he did attempt to do something, but I don't think he really meant it. Would do nothing. It would do nothing. They know it. We all know it, and nothing's enough for them because it has nothing to do with this. They don't actually believe that shit. They're just justifying why they are doing something like this. Because in any other situation, it would take some kind of extreme action by an administration to earn this kind of blowback or this kind of retaliatory action. And despite that, like, any hint of a slight against the Democratic Party is met with, oh, this government is the return of the Nazis. It's just like Germany in the 1940s. This is the final solution. It's unbelievable how they convince themselves of this kind of shit. But anyway, I went way off mark here. But this was basically the point, and it's amazing just seeing it happen, like, right in front of your eyes. That this is the one reason that we still even are able to effectively do anything, is because despite people constantly saying these people aren't dumb, I'm sorry, they're dumb. They're fucking dumb. They have enough people that are smart in the ranks of them to make it look like on occasion that something they did was kind of clever, but that's because of a handful of people. The majority of them are really, really fucking dumb, including Hassan and definitely including Mr. Bacon Grease himself, Chunk Yogurt. But anyway, we'll go back to this now.
Story is updated and becomes more important when responding to this subpoena. Hassan suggested
the real target may not be him.
Here we go.
Let me bring Jason in for this part of the story. A name, Jason, we have gone over on special after special and talked about and wondered, why is nobody going after Neville Roy Singham? Why? Most Americans have never heard of this guy, but they should. Let me bring you in, Jason. Who is he?
Yeah, so Neville Roy Singham is a gazillionaire that now is operating out of Shanghai. He's an American citizen, but he's operating out of Shanghai. And probably in the Insider segment right after the break, I'm going to go very deep into the woods, specifically on who this is, because it's really important to know who Neville Singham is. Because I want to go back right now to back when Hassan was talking about Cuba. And some of the specifics about that, because when we first heard about this potential investigation into Hassan Piker, they talked about subpoenas or requests for information that Hassan had received from the government. And that meeting that he was talking about, getting internet access, he was part of, both him and the co-founder of Copink were with delegations of something called the Nuestra America Convoy. Now, how that ties into Neville Roy Singham, organizations in Singham's network were the leaders of the convoy. And it included 650 delegates from around 33 countries, 120 organizations. When you go even further into what Hassan Piker has been talking about over just the past few days, he mentions Singham specifically as being the actual target, or that's what he believes, being the actual target of why they are subpoenaing Hassan Piker.
Let me play the actual audio of him saying this. Here's
now.
Hassan
Here we
Piker
go.
on
Here's
7.
I think that ultimately the target is probably Singham and his operation from PSL to Answer Coalition to Copink, like anything that he has ever financed. And it's not new. It's been around for a while, but it's obviously it's held through regardless. Roy Singham is an American citizen. He lives in China now, and he's a centimillionaire. I think he has almost $1 billion. Not sure how much money he has now, but he's been a funding vehicle for a lot of
a funding vehicle, huh?
A lot of political movements in the country, like a lot of activism.
He's getting nervous.
They hate that. Like the American government hates that. So they're trying to jam him up. They're trying to hit him on anything and everything they possibly can.
Yeah.
Real quick, it's almost the end, and Liz actually is going to continue on this point very strongly, but I just want to make one mention. You notice how much he's kind of fidgeting with his tie? He suddenly starts getting tongue-tied quite a bit. He doesn't know exactly how to say it, because he knows. Even he knows exactly that that this guy is. That's why he's saying it here. And the most amazing part of this whole thing is that, if you were looking at let's say we were looking at some kind of illegal operation targeted by the justice system, and they were going to take it down, how would they do that? What would they do? Well, you can think of things like RICO that have been used in the past, but how do you activate? What makes that? What makes that even viable in the first place? Well, you got to find a weak link and target it to flip one member at least, usually more, but one member can even be enough to rat out the rest, give over a bunch of names and what they do, and you get a perfect structure of how the organization is organized, how they operate, and usually it's because of the threat of jail or some kind of seriously, people are interrogated and they are put before the potential outcome of either them going away for a very long time, or they can work with the government to let them know who else is involved and basically flip to implicate anyone else involved. It's the definition of a rat, basically. Based on every illegal operation that's ever happened. And what's amazing about this is that, of course, it would be Hassan Piker, little socialist bro forever, that would be the weak link in this whole operation that the government would target as the one to get in with, to scare, to fucking get him to flip. And I won't spoil it. I'll just let the rest play out to that point. But I guess I'll kind of just make it known that they were right. They didn't even really need to do the subpoena. They could have just even pretended like they were going to do something, and then he would have rushed off to this room and done something like this. It's just fucking amazing. They didn't need to coax him at all. Just watch his live stream a few times and put a little bit of pressure on him, and there you go. You got it. It's unbelievable. Anyway, finish up, Glenn. Go ahead.
Yeah. I don't know. I
See, they're
hate that. I think every
they're
American should hate that. He's in with the Chinese government, the communist.
He's a fan of communist China. They love him over there, and he is sending over poison pills. I think that everyone should probably hate that.
It's amazing. It's amazing, isn't it? That was how that kicked off. Now I was paying attention to this because I was like, man, this is really weird. Just the way it could be as simple as this. It doesn't. There's got to be something. Nope. I was wrong about that. This could be about as simple as that, but there's way more detail. And Liz's show is a lot more. This was like after probably about 10 to 12 hours, maybe later, maybe a little less, maybe like probably about 10 hours later. Her show is later. At least when I catch it, it's much later in the day. But it seems like now this could be wrong. This could be giving too much credit to the Justice Department, but I think she's dead on this one because I really honestly think there's several things that just have not made sense in a long time. Because if you remember, like not only Donald Trump, but even the members of his administration before he was actually inaugurated and actually took on the office again. And the day he took office, just writing executive orders left and right for like days, basically. There was a sense of, okay, he's really ready to take action. And then there's been like a slowdown period, and I think that people have kind of come to the assumption, understandable, but the assumption that he's not doing anything. I disagree, and my theory is, because I've even seen some interviews lately, like just today there was an interview with Miranda Devine. I think that dude is, man, I gotta feel like, I honestly kind of feel really, I feel for Trump right now, because I almost guarantee you right now, he has to be so fucking careful about everything. Like everything. Anytime he's making a public appearance, anytime he's talking to the press, anytime he's being interviewed, he has to be very, very, very cautious about what he says. He can't say too much about anything they're working on. And why is that? Well, two reasons. Number one, literal and general reasons that you have for classifying anything to be not for the general public to see, because it can threaten the integrity of an investigation, an operation, military action, anything like that. It can interfere there. But there's another reason, and that is just because. So today I saw, I don't know when this was shot, but it had to have been somewhat recently. Today I saw a video of Ro Khanna saying the Palisades fire was mostly because of Donald Trump. The fucking Palisades fire. That was before he was even in office yet. That was before he was in office. And when he got into office, one of the first things he did was fly here to help them put the thing out, get it under control, and fucking try to take things to a point where they're stabilized again. Now, they haven't done shit since, but that was one of the first things he did in office. He tried to work with Gavin Newsom, tried to work with Mayor Bass to get this absolute fucking ridiculous situation under control that they caused and was started literally by some fucking crazed homeless junkie because he hates everything. I don't know. We're going to get to that in the second part of the show, the second segment of the show. But Ro Khanna literally sits there and actually blames Donald Trump even for the Palisades fire. Nothing is the Democrats' fault. Nothing. In a Democrat-controlled state, in a Democrat-controlled city, in an overwhelmingly Democrat-controlled district in the entire city full of Democrat voters, it's still Donald Trump's fault. He doesn't control a damn thing that happens anywhere near that place that he had. Apparently that's still his fault. It's still all because of Trump. And that fucking sentiment, I swear, it's so pervasively strong all the time on the Democratic political talking point list that you can't find any other explanation for anything other than Donald Trump. There's no acts of God. There's no bad actors. There's no criminal enterprises. There's no criminal organization. There's nothing. There's no way to have anything negative happen unless Trump caused it. Trump caused all of it. It's so stupid. And I remember how many people have been constantly, for the longest time at least, they're starting to recognize now, and it didn't just take that, but I mean, hopefully they see that, because anybody that ever thought for a second that Ro Khanna was in any way some kind of genuinely more honest or more genuinely authentic sort of Democratic politician, no, absolutely not. In fact, he's becoming one of the dumbest and worst ones of them all. And maybe he's going to miss his pal Thomas Massey so much that he just had to take one serious jab at Trump to feel better about it. I don't know. I don't know why, but that is so incredibly ludicrous. It is so amazingly stupid that I don't know how you can keep a straight face and say that. But anyway, so I would say that, while maybe he's not so influential and so fucking genius as to be able to start the Palisades fire and have that get out of control before he was even in office, I still would say the next video with Liz is going to be, this is really the main dissection of the whole set of events and what they're attempting to do by the party targeting a subpoena at Hassan Piker, and now as and ruining the vacation for Chunk Yugun and Hassan to go to Europe. Oh, did your little day get ruined? Oh, sorry. Maybe try getting called Nazi and fascist and dictator and evil and every name in the book for a few years straight, and then maybe I'll sympathize with you a little bit, but until then, cry me a fucking river, asshole. Anyway, so this is we'll get started on this clip. I'll move off of that. I'll move off of this after this video, but this is really like the crux of the issue, and I haven't heard much come out of any party, either Hassan or other than that funny clip at the beginning of the video, which, by the way, maybe I should do that first because it's actually pretty good. This is that whole thing at the intro, by the way, because Hassan seems to think that the people are generally on his side. I'm kind of curious how he ever came to that freaking conclusion, because, well, this is what happens when Hassan tries to propagandize his point of view to a group of American citizens who aren't just swayed by his stupid bullshit to be on his side. So, and his pandering and his stupid talking points. Let's see how they take it. I mean, you saw a part of it, but maybe the rest of it is all really good. High fives everywhere, right? Maybe. Let's see.
Testing, and we keep showing support for them with the hopes that eventually it gets to a point where these institutions that are doing this violence feel a sense of accountability and they change the way.
You a socialist, right? That's a political philosophy, right? That's what it says. I thought you know what I was saying. Wait, what happened? What happened that quick? What happened? He's a fucking fraud. He don't know what the fuck he's talking about. People following him because he got money. Yeah. Look at him running. You don't know what the fuck.
Look at him running.
Fuck Twitch, nigga, get out of here with them view bots. You view bot and pussy. Go back to your desktop, you dog abuser. You fucking dog abuser. Respect women, queen. I will never disrespect you, queen. Stay in your lane. This for my people right here. I don't even know this nigga. This is my people. Fuck you, fuck Twitch. Abuse his dog. So if you condone that, fuck you too. I like your red hair. That's nice.
Compliment.
You abuse dogs, you fucking you abuse dogs, you weirdo. Fuck Twitch, don't touch me. I didn't touch you. Get shit, yo, you smell like shit though. Back up. What, you gonna hit me? No, I'm not gonna hit you. Okay, you got nice hair. You smell like... I'm in public though. Freedom of speech. Take your dog out the cage, man. Let him breathe. Let your dog breathe, bro. Animals deserve rights too. Hassan, is that your name? Fake f***. Why would you abuse your dog? You know he abuses dog. You jack him?
This dog is a nice dog. Doesn't abuse anyone. Only
people
abusing are the ones around us right now.
Okay, in public, freedom of speech is an abuse? Freedom of speech is an abuse? Fuck Twitch and fuck you. Fuck them.
Oh, I love it. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the follow-up clip with Liz. So here we go.
Now, 1 year ago, most of us didn't even know Roy Singham's name, or if we'd heard his name, we weren't super familiar with what he stood for and how he operated. He hid in the shadows as he built an enormous, sprawling conspiracy network of left-wing political activism groups and nonprofits with innocuous-sounding names here inside the United States, intended to foment civil unrest in our streets to ultimately serve as the violent vanguard of a Marxist revolution. To call Neville Roy Singham a slippery character might be the understatement of the year.
Now, real quick, just to kind of give a little bit of context. Remember what I said at the beginning when I was discussing this in the broader scheme of things. We're talking about everything we've seen since, not just this administration, but the last administration that looked like, what's going on here? We've got the sudden shift in the tone of the country. We've got colleges all over the place that are openly not just anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, stopping Jewish students from getting to classes. We've got the well, essentially, the how else do I put it? The open border and the facilitation of not only allowing anybody we see coming towards the United States in, but allowing them to be chauffeured around the country to whatever state they want to go to. And on top of that, at taxpayer expense, given a free phone, free meals, free housing, free medical care, free trans surgeries if they want. I mean, literally, like almost hand and foot waited on. And like, what? Why? What is with this sudden shift that we're seeing going on everywhere? Like places that at least were at one point willing to discuss the differences in the United States. Now they have no interest in debate, discussion. They just want to condemn anybody that is opposed to their worldview and their political beliefs. They're all so intolerable. They don't want to even have a discussion with them. It's that's platforming evil, racist viewpoints that they can't, in good conscience, put on. No, that's horse shit. They know they'll whoop their ass in any kind of intellectual debate they have, and unfortunately, it led to them shutting down basically anything that they were hosting, or attempting to shut down anything hosted by anybody else, because they just didn't want the conversation going on anymore. They didn't want any debate or discussion going on anymore. And I've noticed that the quality of debate has gone down drastically, which we'll be getting to in our Rumble only segment, which I'll get to at the end of the show today. It's going to be fairly short. It's just I'll explain later. But anyway, they have no arguments anymore. Anytime they try to argue, they're basically embarrassed and have to either run or just shut it down or whatever they have to do. But they're beyond the point of being able to rationally debate because they're so far gone, and they've never even stopped to ask the questions that are being asked of them in the actual moments where they can't answer. Like they never even ask themselves these questions. But I was just talking about this the other day. What happens when an ideologue hears contradictory evidence to their worldview? It's like they don't rethink their worldview, they become further entrenched in it. And they start making excuses as to how that could be the case. Well, someone's just bad faith. Well, they're just lying. Well, any kind of rationalization you can come to that excuses the beliefs that you already believe and demonizes the people that asked you the question because they don't want to be. That's why they shut it down. They don't want to be asked the question. They don't want to even think about the question. And that's kind of pathetic in so many ways, but mostly because of the fact that if you're unwilling to move when new evidence is brought to you, then, like, why, like, are you trying to always keep your head buried in the sand to basically just say, I'm not listening to any information you don't like? Is that, I don't know how people can live their lives that way. But honestly, it's like we've come to that point with the whole political party in the United States. And that's the most dangerous part about the other side right now is that they aren't even willing to even consider the possibility. They have made their decision that this is what happened. Nothing you show me is ever, like, they are truly and ideologically captured 100% without any kind of wiggle room whatsoever. It's really amazing to see, and for it to happen in the United States is really depressing. But I don't know. The only thing that can really break this, I think, is another generation that actually watches this all happen in real time and sees how destructive it is. But I don't know. Anyway, maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. But anyway, let's get back to this. I just had to mention that point because it's important. So.
Someone who deserves life behind bars if anybody does. But how to catch him?
That's been the challenge of the Trump administration until now. This is not just a U.S. Treasury agency investigation into financial malfeasance. This is step one in arresting Roy Singham. Man, the Trump administration is crafty. To go toe-to-toe with a man as malicious, as treacherous as Roy Singham is not an easy task. And what do we have today? Sometimes we enjoy a victory, a win that is so significant and simultaneously so hilarious that it's almost hard to believe it's real. You guys made this happen. You did this. You've been reporting. You've seen the reporting on the subpoenas from the Treasury Department itself. This has been happening over the course of the past couple days. Fox News, this is a quote, Fox News Digital reported Saturday that the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control has sent administrative subpoenas, put a pin in that word, administrative subpoena, that's significant, and I'll tell you why in just a moment, to Piker, that's Hassan Piker, and leftist Code Pink co-founder Medea Benjamin to get documents about the financial, logistical, and communications details of their March trips to Cuba in possible violation of laws and regulations about doing business with the government of Cuba. Now, as reported, a Fox News digital investigation has identified 145 U.S. nonprofits and activist groups with $1 billion in collective revenues that Justice and Treasury Department officials are investigating as part of a wider influence campaign by Cuba's communist regime and other foreign actors.
Boom.
So what's the purpose of what's happening? It's not to get Hassan Piker a $10,000 civil slap on the wrist. Like, no one cares about that. What's actually behind what we are watching unfold?
Before she reveals that, I will say, I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong. If you guys remember the last episode when I talked about this, I did sort of predict, and I was totally wrong about this. I will admit, I was definitely totally wrong about this. But I didn't see a greater picture that could have been at work because I didn't really realize until the quote, that quote, hadn't really made it to the mainstream release yet of clips that were significant from Hassan, or maybe he hadn't even said it yet. I don't know. But I had seen basically everything that had come out that was really kind of played on every single channel or affiliated news agency that I had referenced, that it was all about Hassan and his mostly talking about the Cuba trip, definitely, but also there was a lot of discussion about putting Hassan in jail or him getting some kind of serious penalty for it. And there are a lot of people who really, really despise Hassan, and I can understand why. He's someone who is very, very dislikable. But to me, I had predicted, if you remember, if you watched or anything, I had predicted that I think it would be best case scenario, if we're being realistic, that we would have Hassan get some kind of serious fine for this, and it would at the bare minimum be a deterrent for him doing some of the more extreme sort of work, because if you hit him in that department where it hurts, he's kind of like The View had to constantly be reading the legal notes. You remember when during the election when there was it was mostly Sonny who was getting all these legal notes about Matt Gaetz and about Donald Trump and about the allegations against any conservative who was being talked about at the time, and they were labeling as the worst things they could possibly think of. I consider that like a knock-on effect. Like, you give them some kind of disincentive to or incentive to not say this outlandish, ridiculous characterization of what it is they're talking about, and present something more honest and realistic, then maybe, just maybe, it would actually be something that would be kind of like an effective method for getting them to not blatantly spread false talking points that get people to just accept a narrative whole cloth because somebody who is a popular individual saying it is enough for, most people out there that are on the left. But that was because I had no idea that, I can't remember if I had heard any rumblings about the funding coming from somebody. I know I hadn't heard Neville Roy Singham's name brought up yet because, like I said, I remember I heard Bill O'Reilly bring up his name quite a while ago. This was back like earlier this year. It was more relation directly to, I think it was either about like illegal immigration and ICE, or it was about Iran and the Iran war and anything like that going on. I can't remember what it was directly in reference to, but it was definitely in reference to something like that going on. And Bill O'Reilly was talking about Neville Roy Singham, who has been a constant source of flooding nonprofit organizations with a bunch of money to whatever the leftist cause of the day is. If he finds somebody useful, he's going to pay him to spread it for him in a country like the United States, where he sees a lot of people that he would be viewing in a very negative context. And Hassan is the kind of person who would most definitely jump at the chance, obviously, as he did in this situation. But in any case, I had not heard that at all, and I hadn't heard of any funding directly from someone who lives obviously in China or any other rival nation. So my thought process hadn't gone into the direction of, wait, could this be about something bigger than Hassan? Even though it could have been something where, he could have maybe had some suspicion about it, even without the mention of his name. So it was something I didn't consider. That was my mess up, but I was definitely wrong about that. This isn't just like, just to be a retraction or anything. I'm just mentioning it because I I just want to make sure that the things I had mentioned in the last show, where I thought the motivation for this would have been something just to disincentivize Hassan from constantly saying untrue statements or spreading false information about other rival countries that glorified them and basically said condemned the United States for its its system of government or its treatment of its citizens. Compared to Cuba, that is an amazingly stupid thing to say. But this is obviously now, as we're hearing these things come out, like way bigger than just Hassan Piker. So I just wanted to make sure I cleared that up, because I realized that when I was watching, I was completely wrong. Holy shit, this is about something totally different. So just for fair game, just in fairness, I guess that's that I was wrong about that. So I'll keep going here, but
is the goal of arresting Roy Singham. And this is what I mean. Now, you did this, remember. This is thanks to you.
It's okay to pat yourself on the back. This is the moment to do that. It has been almost a year since we exposed Roy Singham as the funder of left-wing violence in the United States. Back in July of last year, out in Los Angeles, we saw anti-ICE riots, where what we were told were grassroots protests
Remember what I was talking about?
law-abiding Democrats who didn't want mass deportations.
That's what we were told by the mainstream media. And what we saw with our own eyes was Molotov cocktails thrown by radicals wearing keffiyehs, Hamas paraphernalia. They were burning police cars, breaking the windows at police precincts, attacking police officers, participating in blocking highways and in violence, not because they had a legitimate difference of opinion about mass deportation, but because they were using that as an excuse to cause violence. And the mainstream media and the left continued to hammer this blatantly false narrative that this was all grassroots. This is what happens when you have a president like Trump, we were told. People get angry, and this is what they do. This is organic, it's grassroots. And it was not. We'd never heard of Roy Singham's name at that time.
Yeah, hold on. I just want to do some. I don't normally do, but I think it's important because there's not going to be much other than photos and discussion here. I have a very short, but probably pretty effective compilation of. How long is it? It's about just over 30 seconds of some of the Neville Roy Singham funding in action. Just like, what are we talking about here? What are the sorts of action that is being promoted by his funding? Well, let me see if I can do this and not have to worry. Although I'll check real quick. What are we at? 4 minutes and 23 seconds. Okay. I think I can do this if I open this on a different player. So let's see. Let's try. Yeah, that should work. This should work. Yeah, here we go. I'm going to have to pause it here. Oh, stop. Okay, there we go. All right, I'll have to move this over. Just a second. Okay. All right. Yeah, so this is what we're talking about here. What does Neville Roy Singham put his money into? What kind of action does he like to fund? It's this right here.
Welcome in our city. The giantest business owners have no place in our city. Let them know. Jack Goldie. Jack Cookin Solo. And look at all these pigs protect them. Fuck them too.
For every U.S. military base that crumbles, and for every U.S. soldier who returns home in a casket, we cheer!
So, just as linking this back to China, oh, what the hell did that? Oh no, it's still here. Okay, cool. Man, I was worried there for a second. Just for context, so this guy is saying, this Hamas supporting piece of shit is saying how excited they're getting when an American soldier returns home in a casket, which luckily their pathetic little Iranian forces, defense force, has not been too successful at, and there hasn't been one coming home in a casket by their own doing for quite a while. But if you're, I mean, you know, he's a pathetic little pussy ass bitch because he's standing there wearing his little mask and wearing his little hoodie and screaming into his megaphone about how excited they are when that shit happens. But you know, it's I'm not even going to use the typical sort of response to that shit. I'm going to say that you know, I go and say that in front of a you know, let's say middle-aged military veteran who's come home from frontline combat. Go ahead, try it, and see, like, without your little fucking giant posse there, even with a couple other people with you though, that'd be fine. You know, wouldn't want to only you. That wouldn't be fair at all. That, you know, that would be I mean, you might get seriously hurt, but you know, with just a couple people there, I don't think there'd be much of a challenge there, because, you know, people that are that fucking cowardly usually are pretty paranoid for a pretty good reason. They get their fucking ass handed to them pretty quick. But I usually don't like throwing out, you know, the typical sorts of responses like that. But to cowards like that, who, you know, you don't even have to fucking be patriotic. You don't have to support the United States and Iran, and I mean, that's been pretty clear by a lot of people who don't. That's fine. But to say that you celebrate and cheer when an American soldier is killed and returns in a casket, I'm sorry. That person, people like that deserve to be immediately jailed, and if not immediately exiled, put to death. I'm sorry. That's disgusting. That's absolutely sick and disgusting, and those people are. I mean, at any other period in time, that would be what happens. That would be the result. You'd be killed. You start cheering for the death of your country's soldiers in combat. You'd be killed. Any other fucking country in the history of time. In Iran, you know what you get killed for? Speaking out at all against the Iranian regime. You say one thing negative about the Iranian regime, they fucking murder your ass. I'd love to see these fucking pieces of shit go out there and see if, you know, this country they seem to glorify in some way, and you know, they love to talk about, oh, they killed the school full of children. First of all, I don't believe them, but secondly, any innocent civilian that is killed, first of all, you couldn't care less. You don't care about the population because they're getting killed all the time, far more by their own government than by Israel, than by the United States or anybody else. And secondly, what is it that is so admirable about the fucking government? Because I'm guessing you're Islamic. Okay, fine. Then go to the Middle East and fight with Hamas or Hezbollah or the Houthis or Iran or IDF, or not IDF, wrong military, the IRGC, there we go, and you know, because your allegiance is obviously there, so go show your support, enlist, help them out. Sounds like where you belong anyway. Let's get back. It's sick, it's gross. But this guy, yeah, that's his perspective. So once again, he can go fuck himself too.
Or if we had, we'd heard it only in passing, tangentially. Mostly we hear about George Soros and other billionaire leftists who,
like most, have an ego that prompts them to want to be given credit for what they do.
Well, Roy Singham's a different sort of character. He operates in secret. He operates from his office in Shanghai, an office which he shares with a Chinese Communist Party propaganda firm.
What a surprise.
Roy Singham quietly has built a whole web, a network of groups, the groups with innocuous names, to hide the fact that he pays for the operations of those groups. For example, out in Los Angeles last year, the group, the organization that was handing out all the signs to all the people and telling them where to go, well, if you look at the corner of those signs, the name of the group was printed on the signs, the Party of Socialism and Liberation. The Party of Socialism and Liberation is a communist political
Remember
party
Hassan
in the United
saying the
States. They actually
PSL?
fractured off from the Communist Party in the United States, and they are funded, they receive funding through this web of Singham groups, particularly through their association with the People's Forum, who has received $20 million from Roy Singham. And once we spoke about this, you raised your voice and exposed this so that our politicians knew what was happening. Because without citizen journalists like yourself, our politicians know nothing. You demanded justice.
Even with
you
them,
demanded
sometimes they know
accountability.
nothing.
Well, now, a significant operative in this Singham cohort has admitted that these investigative findings that you reported over a year ago, or almost a year ago, are actually true. The Trump administration set
But
a
they have
trap,
an insider now.
and left-wing streamer Hassan Piker fell right into it.
And he's the
Hassan
perfect
Piker
one to fall.
explained after he received this administrative subpoena from the Department of the Treasury, he explained what this Treasury investigation was actually about. Take a listen.
I think that ultimately the target is probably Singham and his operation from PSL to Answer Coalition to Co-Pink, like anything that he has ever financed. And it's not new. It's been around for a while, but it's obviously it's held through regardless because like it's ridiculous, right? It's like totally ridiculous to try and you know to try and stop like the political advocacy of an American citizen, right? Roy Singham is an American citizen. He lives in China now, and he's a centimillionaire. I think he like has almost $1 billion. Not sure how much money he has now, but like he's been a funding vehicle for a lot of like political movements in the country, like a lot of activism.
There we go. Yeah.
And they hate that shit. Like the American government hates that shit, so they're trying to jam him up. You know, they're trying to hit him on anything and everything they possibly can. That's it. That's the goal here. That's the broader goal.
This may be the
Real quick, just to mention, I'll make this very quick. The way he describes it, just the political operations of a citizen, and it's ridiculous for them to be going. Actually, no, it's not. Sorry, Hassan. When the civil unrest has gotten to the point where citizens have taken to disguising their identity, throwing Molotov cocktails at fucking police officers and federal immigration employees, and throwing concrete and bricks at their cars and windows, standing in front of their cars trying to block them from getting to a destination, and defending people attempting to arrest and deport child sex traffickers, murderers, rapists, abusers, drug dealers, and almost any other crime you could think of under the sun. No, that's not just a political movement, Hassan. That's not just some citizen who's concerned about the direction of the country. That's fucking illegal bullshit is what it is. And yeah, I think the government has pretty good fucking reason to want to go after him. Sorry. There are things that are a little beyond the pale, Hassan. Those are kind of a cut above just, you know, generic political action, you stupid fuck. Oh my god. Anyway, I hate that stupid sort of passive way he describes this insane group of people that have no restraint whatsoever. Yeah, it's just a political movement. Yeah, just a political movement, yeah. What a fucking... I don't know if it's based on... I'm sorry, but I don't know if it's based on, like, just naivete, or this feeling of completely being untouchable already, or both. I don't know. How he can get up and just kind of say stupid shit like this and actually think anybody's gonna believe him. I don't know, but I wonder why they targeted Hassan. Jeez. Anyway.
The only time in the history of the world that I will ever say Hassan Piker is mostly right.
Other than
Mostly
what I
right,
was
but that's
talking
not even
about,
the point of me showing you this video. The point of
Me showing you this video, you might be thinking, well, we knew all of that. We knew that Roy Singham uses this network of groups, the Party of Socialism and Liberation, Code Pink, the People's Forum, to fund
This is a key point here, too,
organization,
obviously.
the planning, the operation, the logistics, the payment of the paid protesters, all these things that are happening in the United States. You might be thinking, yeah, we knew that. Well, yes, you did. But to hear it from the mouth of an insider, when the Singham crew works so hard
And more
to
importantly,
obscure him from what his money's doing, to obscure his funding of communism and violence, this development is of the ultimate significance. As I said, the Trump administration laid the trap and Hassan Piker walked right
I'm
into
sorry.
it because now
And more importantly, is it not just what they're doing? It's what you can prove now, because it's been said by an inside member that knows the inner workings of this group, that is in direct contact with either his Singham directly or Singham's representatives and basically the people he sends out to actually directly send financial contributions or whatever, or send material support of some kind, or send even people out to support with these sorts of things. When you have that level of admission that is now a matter of public record, like I said, this is so stupid, but if there was somebody who was dumb enough to do it, and it's the kind of streamer mentality. I'm just on live stream. Yeah, you're on a live stream admitting to all this shit. I mean, this is unbelievable, but of course you would. The hubris is insane.
this allows the Trump administration to keep pursuing. It's an admission. It allows the Trump administration to use Cuba as just the first step,
Admission
the starting
of guilt.
line. This is just the beginning. Now, when I say the Singham crew works hard to obscure Roy Singham, this is something that's admitted even by insiders on the left. I'm going to read you this comment from Fergie Chambers. Fergie Chambers is also a wealthy leftist who funds the same sort of projects as Roy Singham, although not quite to the extent. This is what she posted on X. Roy is not a total bystander. Roy has a firm agenda, a way he sees things unfolding, which he will share readily in private chats, a will to control the entire movement, and a small core of his own cadre who quietly do his and their bidding in their own interest, which are interwoven. Vijay, that's the Vijay Prashad that we talked about, Manolo, the Beckers, then a whole network of elite liberals via Roy's wife, Jody Evans, and Code Pink. None of these people, Fergie Chambers writes, publicly acknowledge work with Singham, save, of course, his wife. He's different. Roy Singham is different than George Soros because he must operate in secret. And by the way, Roy Singham admits that his strategy in life can be summed up in one word. And that word is treachery. This is Roy Singham in his own words.
Now
Take a
you
listen.
ready to fucking hear something amazing?
I always tell my sons this. You know, what is the great advantage I have over them? It says, no matter how much smarter you are than me, I will still always have one thing over you, and that's treachery, right? That's the one thing that old people excel at, is treachery.
Treachery. The one thing that I'll always have over you. Singham
Over his
proclaims
sons,
is
no
treachery.
less.
This from a man whose worldview is best summed up in his own words when he admitted how he views the United States of America as the most deeply racist country in the world. Take a listen.
America is the most deeply racist society in the world, perhaps with the exception of Israel. The two most deeply racist countries in the world are Israel and the United States.
Yeah, not
And
China.
I went to Lebanon in particular so that I could see, to go to a
homogenous
Muslim country
almost,
where I
isn't
also knew were under the oppression of Israel's violation of their rights. And of course, one of the consequences of that is when I go back to the United States, the immigration now, I get stopped occasionally for asking, who am I meeting with? Did you meet Hezbollah? And all these kind of things. But it's not a decision that I regret. And I, as a child, could not reconcile how in Youngstown, Ohio, there was food being wasted, and I come on a boat ride and there are children dying. And I decided from that day of my life that I would despise inequality, and I would never allow anybody to tell me that meritocracy or hard work had a goddamn thing to do with success in life. It was clear to me as a child that this absurdity of the middle class
Maybe that's your
argument
problem.
that hard work
You have a
and
child's
smarts
like
what
view
makes
of the
better
world.
people is a vicious lie and is so unfair to every child who's born into this world. My parents had a big choice of what to do. They, of course, were highly offended by the idea of singing, praise to the British. So my father and mother would stand up and start booing and
I
spitting.
love how he thinks he's
If
so
you're a young
profound
kid and you're
because-
watching your parents, doing these things, you're sort of a little embarrassed. This is why aren't my parents well behaved? But then my parents said, listen, look at all these black people in the audience. What are these white people sitting up on the stage? Why are you this? So we had, as children, had to make a choice.
Yeah, things are a little
we
different now,
influenced
you
by our
dumb
parents?
fuck.
Do we do this? No. Fortunately, my father was a good politician, and so he would go around and organize people and get all the things to do it. So pretty soon we were not the only ones. So I was very proud as a young person to have, this consequence. Then I decided to go to the United States and join the Revolutionary Black Movement. It was very important for me to have long hair because Rastafarians in Jamaica had long hair and militants in the United States had long hair. And my hair was already going bald and it was wispy and it was looking weird and straggly, but I had to have long hair. In Jamaica, you had to have very English, and I refused to have my hair cut. My privilege from Ferguson to Brazil, where I got to meet farmers who were seizing land for the poor, to South Africa, where ThoughtWorks is helping the militant trade union NUMSA create software that will organize their members. We sang for 8 hours because they killed 3 of their leaders, to coming to India and meeting, such a wonderful
What
fighting
a piece
resistance.
of shit.
I know that I only do that because you guys are billable at clients that you saw yesterday. I am acutely aware of my privilege. Only promise I make to you is I try to do my very best with that privilege to represent you everywhere I go as a set of people who are determined to prove that this next generation of young people will not make the choices that my generation made or Sudhir's generation made and turn their back on society because of privilege, careers, and consumerism.
Yeah, privilege.
Wait a second. Did you?
Hold on just a second. And before she makes her point, I'm sorry. This is like, once again, like I said, this is like a childlike interpretation of the world. And it's one that's pretty much outdated to the point of being irrelevant. Because if you hadn't paid attention, Neville, yeah, that's right, Neville, things kind of changed since the 60s. They're a little different now. We had a black president. We've had black people in just about every office in the United States. We've had black people in positions to be millionaires, billionaires, wealth all over the place. There's not a monolithic black culture or status in anything regarding American life. There is no structure of racism or oppression anymore. So, yeah, you could scratch us off the list if you're actually, really serious about it, and you would be maybe a little bit more focused on that other place you mentioned, South Africa, where they openly are chanting about murdering white farmers, and that's totally fine. But you don't give a shit, do you? No, because it's the same bullshit narrative every leftist has to fucking bow down at the altar to. The altar of George Floyd, which, by the way, I'm not going to probably have time to talk about it this episode, but the events surrounding that kid Henry in the UK, that's the embodiment of evil right there. And not, the cops are kind of put in a position where they are persuaded and forced to believe in this ideal fucking this strange sort of what's it called? Basically removing all responsibility away from any minority. It's never their fault. They're never the ones responsible. And the highest form of oppression and highest form of violence is racism. So if there's someone of a minority class and a white individual involved, always take the word of the minority no matter what the circumstances, and that's exactly what led to that poor kid getting stabbed 5 times and then fucking being handcuffed. Which, by the way, the whole I can't breathe thing, people are right when they say that's like a George Floyd of the UK. The difference is that kid couldn't breathe, not because he downed a whole fucking bag full of fentanyl that he just bought from his drug dealer, but because he'd been stabbed in the fucking lung. And he wasn't resisting arrest. He was already bleeding out because the piece of garbage Islamic immigrant to the country who used a defense of he knocked my turban off. That was what he said to the police officers, was that he was harassing me and he knocked my turban off. That means the punishment is being stabbed 5 times and bleeding out on the ground as the cops leave you to die and handcuff you. Even though one of those stab wounds, by the way, was in the fucking face. I'm sorry, I'll stop. But once again, Neville here is real worried about inequality and racism and all the evils of the world. Yet, he's got his fucking ridiculous standards based on some fucking bullshit he describes when he was a kid. And he tries to pass that off as some legitimate reason to still be grieved by the identity politics ridiculous agenda of the modern left to infantilize. That was the word I was looking for before. Infantilize any minority that's like, it's the same thing with voting. How can you expect, black people can't be expected to use a computer. They don't know how to use a computer. Wow. Who's the racist one again? I forgot. Anyway. It fucking really infuriates me when I hear that kind of bullshit. Anyway, sorry.
Ever notice that the people who castigate the United States as racist, who castigate meritocracy as
something that only serves white people, are oftentimes very wealthy, very successful
there it
people
is,
who are
right
not
there.
white? I think it's appropriate to take a moment and just chuckle here, because this is hilarious. Like, why are the most terrible people, like Hassan Piker, always these, like, sniffling cowards?
Yeah.
You were subpoenaed, an administrative subpoena, and immediately you publicly narked on everybody that you work with. Immediately, you give the Treasury Department the evidence to continue the investigation into the people that you have claimed to be comrades with. Like, just the absolute... they're the Trump administration set a mousetrap and they caught a narking rat. And again, the funny part is it's not even Hassan Piker who the Treasury Department actually wants. To catch a crafty criminal like Roy Singham, you have to beat that crafty criminal at his own game. And that is exactly what the Trump administration is doing. They are using Singham's own style to catch him. And now, what is the Singham style? The Singham style is to use a nonprofit with a bland name to push a much bigger goal so that people don't notice until it's too late. That's the Singham playbook. Well, now the Trump administration is saying, okay, we see you and we'll raise you. We're going to use a nerdy agency, kind of the equivalent of a nonprofit with an innocuous name, as a vehicle to push a much larger goal so that people don't notice that it's not just a financial technicality that they're pursuing until Roy Singham is in handcuffs. The Treasury investigation is step 1 in outsmarting Roy Singham. Because Roy Singham's an American citizen, ostensibly, you can use your money as an American citizen for almost whatever you want. You obviously can't violate Treasury restrictions like using your money to pay for a hotel that's directly tied to the Cuban Communist government.
Remember what I said about
you
that
also
hotel.
can't use your money if you are a pawn of the Chinese Communist Party, which is pretty obvious. You and I can sit here and say, well, Roy Singham is obviously a pawn of the Chinese Communist Party. He shares an office with a Chinese propaganda firm. He has investments in China, which you're only allowed to do if you are essentially a friend of the Chinese Communist Party. That's the way that they pay you off. So even if Roy Singham doesn't get direct paychecks from the Chinese Communist Party, he gets indirect paychecks. He's been seen at Chinese Communist Party propaganda conferences, writing, taking notes in a notebook, a red notebook with a communist hammer and sickle on it. It's pretty obvious to
The
everyone
cliches are so
that
crazy.
Roy Singham is acting as a pawn of the Chinese Communist Party, and therefore it's pretty obvious that his funding of left-wing violence in the United States is not just immoral and evil because he's funding violence, but it's also against the law because you cannot act as a pawn of the Chinese Communist Party, even using your own money.
Obviously not. So, so now to kind of put a bow on this, and after I've kind of sat on this for a few days and thought about the realistic expectations and results that can come about from this, I agree. You know, this is likely the ultimate goal for what they're trying to do with this, and this is probably a massive step and a massive success as well in bringing this about. However, I will say this part, you know, I doubt very strongly because there's a reason he's going to be mostly in China, sending other people to act on his behalf in the United States whenever there's something like this going on, and his method is what it is, because not only is he, despite the fact that he's an American citizen still, not only is he operating in the interest of China, but you know, China, there's no way they're going to extradite somebody, no matter who he is, from China to America if they know that that person is acting against the interests of the United States. And cooperate with the United States justice system to send a individual who, like I said, is acting in their best interest, is a very wealthy individual in the Chinese in the country of China, and extradite them back to face the United States justice system for crimes against the United States and in the interest of a foreign power, and in particular if the power is them. But even if this doesn't put him in prison, ultimately what we all should want more than anything, even if there's no direct, direct incarceration for Neville Singham, to be smartened up to the point that we recognize his actions and his affiliated groups, and to make sure that the organizations that he funds are crushed. Anybody who's affiliated and found to be participating in any violent action that was intended to harm or disrupt the United States or its interests is fair game, and it pretty much ends any influence of a piece of shit like Neville Roy Singham in the United States, and stops that operation dead in its tracks, and allows us to get back to a sense where you don't have people with the interests of the Chinese Communist Party enacting that will and that interest at the expense of not just U.S. police officers and United States. United States. Federal government employees, police officers, and federal agents, and anyone involved with criminal operations, but United States citizens as well, from harming anyone involved and attempting to exercise in peaceful protest, actual peaceful protest, one for one side or the other. If we can get to a point where we're not having ICE officers get beat. You remember that video of that ICE officer standing in front of the hotel who's just had his nose busted and God knows what other injuries to his face because the protesters ran into the hotel lobby and started attacking him and one other agent and had their fucking damn near face smashed in by these pieces of garbage, and he was still standing defending the the building and trying to fucking stave off all the lunatics that were still out there. That kind of shit has got to fucking end. That has got to end, and it should have ended a long time ago. But if it's being facilitated and financed and accommodated for by, you know, the kind of big money that would be invested in this kind of shit from some anti-West lunatic like that piece of garbage, I would be more than content with that as the conclusion. Because once again, you know, being realistic here once again about the actual realistic way this could go, even if they find him guilty of anything, like if they find in a court of law that there's strong suspicion or even almost undeniable evidence that he's committed some kind of crime, the Chinese Communist government is not going to extradite anybody back to the United States regardless. You know, and there could be some back and forth about that, but I just don't see that being realistic. So unless they happen to catch him, I don't know, you know, like how many trips he would take to the United States personally. He very well may. Maybe he will. That would be the only way if there was some sort of trip he took to the United States and they knew everything they needed to know and were able to nab him there. That would be something I could see happening. But if somebody is this deep involved, I don't know, you know, because if he even catches wind that someone like Hassan's already singing like a bird, just for an indictment of all things, then he's going to be acting extra cautiously. And so I'm just saying it out because, you know, I don't want to be a, you know, spoiler or anything, like a party pooper or any kind, but like I'm just saying, we haven't had any kind of real action on this stuff. Now, that would be a very serious success and one hell of a fucking win to be able to celebrate over. But just being honest, like that would be about the length of how far it would go. And that to me would be enough if you end the action that these people are getting away with. Because these people are fucking sick. Not one of them even, I mean, you ask them any kind of question, they either refuse to answer, can't answer, or start going into a tangent about something completely unrelated. Because they don't know a damn thing. They know nothing. These are really stupid people. Almost all of them are so stupid to the point that they don't know anything. It's not that they don't know about American history. They don't know history, period. They don't know anything about history. They don't know anything about the subject that they're so committed to for the most part. Like, they don't know anything about America or any other country they're advocating for or against or anything. They sure as hell know nothing about Israel. They sure as hell know nothing about Palestine. They don't know anything about the Muslim Brotherhood. They don't know anything about any terrorist organization like Hamas or Hezbollah or the Houthis. They don't know. They know nothing. They know nothing about because it's so funny to hear the group that wants to categorize Donald Trump and any conservative as Nazis and dictators and fascists, yet the people acting most in concert with the actions of the Nazi Party, to the point that one of them literally had a Nazi tattoo on his chest until he had it covered up, is that party. You don't see any Republicans who had to cover up any Nazi tattoos, and they tried to suggest that Pete Hegseth had a Nazi tattoo on his chest. No, that's a Christian symbol. Once again, you're so stupid you know nothing about what you're talking about, and yet you just blab your mouth about how all this stuff. Oh, it's a Nazi symbol. Oh my God. No. See, you know, if you actually, you know, maybe took the time to learn anything, you would recognize it's not what it is, and you know, just because. I don't know, Pete Hegseth. Maybe you should have been more in the business of scrutinizing people like Eric Swalwell as opposed to Pete Hegseth just because he was at Fox. Ooh, terrible. And because he didn't want, you know, the United States government or the U.S. military paying for transgender surgeries. That maybe that has something to do with it too. But I don't know. I'm just an evil right-wing conservative. You know, call me what you want. I don't care. But still, it's like anything I'm saying right now is blasphemy. The other side. So I'll just put a bow on that and call that an issue until I hear anything else. We'll kind of leave it at that, because honestly, I know the thing is, like, I know Hassan is very, very disliked. He's disliked by so many people. But you'll find it everywhere. You'll find information everywhere, and I'm not gonna kind of speculate on any little detail that we find here or there or whatever. But I just know I dislike the guy a ton too. But he is a fucking moron. He's absolutely a fucking moron. He's totally stupid as hell. I don't think he's really the only danger he represents is when he actually does put someone in a position to speak on his show or on his streams that actually is smart enough to propagandize individuals to their way of thinking or something like that. Because he's not of that level of intelligence. He's just a really stupid and ignorant streamer that is using the counterculture narrative, man. But that's all he is. He's got no real ability to influence anything. And to the people that are dumb enough to watch him, I've talked about this before. If they're watching someone like that, they're dumber than he is already. It's not going to be either easy nor worth the time to try and convince people that dumb that. And I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. If they're watching Hassan Piker, they're going to be too dumb to really understand much anyway. So I have to get to this because and brace yourselves. Here we go. Here's the part that's really going to be rough. Spencer Pratt has been just fucking. He's been a force of nature, man. This guy is really looking strong at this point, and I can see why. I mean, I've been sort of really watching this guy since the beginning, and I was thinking, man, this is a really great way to structure a campaign. This is a really strong way to look like you are, and to suggest that you are somebody who would be more effective at governance based on what's been allowed to happen under the current leadership, and that something would be losing your home to a wildfire that the state did nothing about and let burn to the ground, let people burn alive in their homes, and it's just he's got the sort of legitimate credit that you would get from a natural disaster in a situation that arises like that to make that claim, and in a political campaign to use it as a legitimate grievance. It's kind of like the people that get up and speak at city council meetings or in front of school boards that are getting told, sit down, no, I'm a taxpayer. In this case, it's a candidate, and he's somebody who has the legit credentials to be like, yeah, this is what these people did while they were in office, and I was directly affected by their incompetence and their complete dereliction of duty, irresponsibility, and the fact that there's no serious action taken in the history of their leadership that shows any kind of commitment to the job or the people or anything like that. But there was a subject he broke in a recent video. There's another reason I'm bringing this up, but I'll get into it later. But I'll just start by saying this is really unbelievable. Because first off, let me tell you this part, because this is kind of just a funny anecdote, but it's in the context of what's going on. There are quite a few homeless people in the city that I live in. I'm nowhere near Los Angeles. I'm like I said before, I'm closer to the central area of California. But where I live, homeless people are, they may be on drugs, maybe not. I've never seen open drug use. Maybe once in a blue moon. You hardly ever see open drug use by homeless people in this city. There's not big gatherings, any particular place. They are, for the most part, not as like I went to LA one time, years and years ago. This was in like 2006, I think, or something like that, 2005, 6, and I was struck by how aggressive homeless are in Los Angeles. I walked to a Walgreens, that was it was at like 7 o'clock p.m. when it was starting to get a little dark outside, and they were everywhere suddenly, like and constantly in your face. Hey, can I get some? I need some. Okay, man, can you help me out? Blah, blah, blah. Everywhere. And I walked into the store thinking, oh, thank God I'm out of that. I walked back out, and there was more out there. It was nuts. But anyway, so this town's nothing like that. The few that are there, not nearly as aggressive, not nearly as demanding. They are far more humble when they ask, and far more grateful when you do so. Like, I remember at one point there was a guy, you could tell he wasn't accustomed to living homeless, but he was exceptionally hungry. He had it was raining outside, and he was just kind of huddled into this little overhang for a while. And my grandma, I was out with my grandma and my brother. We went and got some food, and the fast food place. And my grandma said, "You know what? Here, I'm gonna buy him just a little kid's meal. Go take it out to him." I was like, "Sure, okay." I brought it out to him. He's like, he couldn't believe it. He was stunned that anyone would do that for him. And he wolfed that thing down. I mean, it was gone in less than a minute because he was so starved. But that's what I mean. Like, it's a different breed of people here than you'd see in a big city. It's a fairly decent sized city, but I mean, like the homeless population is nothing here. Like this isn't San Francisco or anything. It's not a giant city. It's not a well known city, but it's a city. It's got a decent population. There are parts where you wouldn't want to go. We're not in that part, but for the most part, that's the general kind of thing you'll find. That's all to say that that what we're seeing here is not a consequence of just the homeless population that's here. This is a consequence of actions that have been tolerated by the current leadership, and law enforcement has been forced to comply with these ridiculous fucking conditions to not to arrest, not to detain, not to do anything, just let them stay there. You hear people on the left constantly suggesting, well, there's no money, we need to make housing. As I've talked about before, this isn't a matter of housing, this isn't a matter of finances. These people want to be on the street. They want to be right where they are. They want to keep doing what they're doing. This has nothing to do with the conditions they're in being not good enough. This is because these people have no desire to be anywhere else and until they are put in a position where they don't like it, like arrested and put in fucking prison, it's going to get worse. And if there were candidates to select first, it would be evil monsters like we're about to talk about in this video and just in this discussion in general. Because I've talked about this before. One of my lines is I've been totally upfront and honest about it. My two lines are people who harm children, people who harm animals. Can't stand that shit. And this does link to another situation I'm going to mention, but I almost couldn't believe that, because once again, just one last link to this place. There are homeless people that have dogs in this area. Their dogs probably live better than they do. When they get enough money to get food, they usually get food for their dog first before they get food for them. That's how much they care about their pets. They might not be able to provide the best living conditions, but they love that dog. I've seen them, like if they lose their dog or they don't know what's happened, they're panicked or they're already emotional or whatever. Like they really do. I've seen one guy who kept his dog in this little child's little carriage that was had a really nice little not nice, but a really puffy, cushy looking little mattress almost thing in it that his dog was just laying on and comfortable. It looked like he was just chilling. Like, man, wow. So that kind of thing I can't say like don't take the guys. Let him have that. I mean, he's doing his best. I guarantee you the dog's probably being fed at least to the best of his ability. There are people that own homes that don't treat their pets this well. Come on, this is not anything to get upset over. Contrast that with what I'm about to show you. And I'm one of those people who drop these people in the middle of the fucking ocean and let them swim. I mean, I don't fucking care. Get rid of them. Do whatever you want. I could care less. I couldn't care less. I'm sorry. Because, like I said, I can't stand that kind of shit. If you are burning dogs alive, if you are if you're forcing them to breed, if you're on the street starving them, if you are chaining them to a fence for days at a time, if you like, I got no patience for that shit. I've got no desire to even tolerate for a second some sack of shit who does that. If that's the mentality and the lifestyle, do it without a fucking pet. Sorry, you're not getting an ounce of fucking sympathy from me. I don't think you want it. I couldn't care less. You need to be rounded up and put away. And actually, if it were up to me, you'd be fucking in the chair today. Like this is unexcusable. This is totally not the behavior of anyone who belongs in civil society at all whatsoever, and they need to be removed as fast as possible. And Spencer Pratt is totally intent on if he becomes governor, because the homeless population in the cities like San Francisco and LA has exploded, but in LA in particular, somehow there's been an explosion of people who not only have dogs but abuse dogs, and there's been this widespread belief that I'll just have the dog breed and sell all the puppies. Oh man, this is gonna be tough. Like really, this is gonna be tough. So this is gonna be short because I couldn't catch much of this. I couldn't put much of this in here. And there was a whole segment, and this was also from a different video that was talking about all kinds of other stuff. But this was just one part, and this was like, and there's a greater reason to bring this up. There's a couple greater reasons that I'm bringing this up, but there's like a civic duty almost I consider to do this. So have a look at just some of the examples of what's being allowed to happen. And this is why, like, now it's like, oh, I pray to God that if anything, there's one surprise in the elections this midterm or whenever the elections are going on in Southern California for mayor, to get Karen Bass the fuck out of office and put in somebody who actually gives a damn about not just the people but the pets, the children, everything that is being failed by this party, this administration. Let it be this guy. Let it be this candidate. He can see this and he understands there's no fucking excuse for it. There's no fucking excuse to have a society where you have this kind of absolute fucking, like I said, literal evil just walking free on your fucking streets. Not only the degeneracy and the drug use and the influence on the fucking like bystander, the messages it sends to the rest of the community, but when you see this level of extremity of violence and of callous dismissal of a living creature, this is complete and total evil. There's no other word for it. And there's no fucking way in hell that you can allow this shit to go on in a place that you are supposed to be in a position of leadership in, and allow this fucking shit to happen and not step in and do something to prevent it. And I don't mean, no, sending them to some kennel where they're kept in a cage until you decide to execute them. No. That's not, I mean, I understand when there's a population of animals that are so massive and not enough people to take them. But there are things that exist now that you can do that are going to be much, much, much more beneficial to both the animal and to people around him. And you don't even bother exploring it. It's just, in fact, it's not even something you even think about. And someone like that, sorry, the last thing you deserve is to be, quote unquote, serving in a position of leadership. You're not serving a damn thing. As far as I'm concerned, you're almost as culpable as the fucking people who do this shit in the first place. What am I talking about? Well, here you go. Like I said, there's nothing graphic here, like openly graphically displayed or anything like that. There's some descriptions that are hard to listen to, but no kind of graphic description. It might pull on your heartstrings a little bit, but even mine. I'm sorry, I might lose it a little bit, but you got to face this shit, because this is the kind of stuff that I will always highlight, because no, this is unacceptable, and people need to demand absolutely far more from their elected officials than this fucking nightmare. So, here it is.
We pretty much had to blur everything. Dogs found burned to death.
Oh
Their
my
small
God.
bodies stuffed into trash cans and suitcases. The abuse of dogs is spiraling out of control at homeless encampments.
The dog was running, screaming, on fire, trying to get into people's homes. He was asking for help.
The damage to this dog is very intentional.
The poor dog, it looks like it's been burned. It was wrapped in a plastic trash bag.
In Hollywood, on Franklin and Van Ness, animal activists say someone stuffed a dead dog into a suitcase.
I went with Joey Tuccio and Rebecca Corey as they brought food to some of these neglected dogs on Skid Row.
Problem with that, we can take the dog today, but I want to make sure it's not too late.
Chained in this dog with
Covered
wounds
in
all,
flies.
It's
covered in
horrible.
flies, wounds all over. How's that not neglect?
Breeding their dogs over here, and they've been breeding their dogs forever.
Like, with the right person in charge, this can be taken care of.
This is all manageable, but there's not.
That's just a snippet. Like I said, I couldn't really cut too much more of it. That was there is a segment with Spencer Pratt discussing exactly what he would do to sort of immediately get to work fixing this problem. But I'll tell you this, Karen Bass, I don't know how long this ad's been out, but I haven't heard of any kind of, other action she's taken. I've only heard of other shelters just taking them and getting far overloaded and having to just kill more dogs. And the way. I mean, when you're strung out on drugs and on the street, if you think that those people somehow have any kind of reason whatsoever that you can justify, and I don't want to hear any fucking bullshit about how, I mean, there's multiple witnesses to this shit. There's tons of people in the LA area that said they've seen this. If it's right on fucking Skid Row, for fuck's sake, it's happening. There's many people who said they've seen dogs on fucking fire crying out until they keel over and die. I don't give a fuck who it is. If they're responsible for letting this shit get out that way, lock them up, throw away the key, and put put them with the most vicious criminals in the penitentiary system. I couldn't fucking care less. I couldn't. This is one of those things I cannot. There's nothing too harsh for people like this. So there's two reasons I'm bringing this up. The first one is, like I said, if you're like me, a California native, but you're closer to Southern California, and you've had any kind of hesitation about who to vote for, on this reason alone, especially, I don't care who you're affiliated with. Spencer Pratt is not by any means a radical political partisan in any direction. He's possibly one of the most moderate-sounding candidates I've heard in a long time for any office, and nothing he's proposed sounds anything like this isn't like we're talking about Oklahoma or Louisiana level conservative candidate here. We're talking about very moderate California Republican. And so we're not talking about a crackdown. We're not talking about someone who's going to take away your precious abortion rights. We're not. I hate to even put it this way, but we're not talking about anyone talking about taking away your rights. You're taking this from me, taking that from you. We're talking about somebody who wants to fix a problem that has gotten to a level that it's fine to kill dogs, shove them into trash cans or suitcases wrapped in plastic bags. We're talking about people who leave their dog chained to a fence for days to lay in their own piss and shit. We're talking about people who are, for some fucking reason, lighting fucking dogs on fucking fire. I mean, there's no excuse for it. So like I said, I'm going to really be making sure I advocate for Spencer Pratt any chance I get, just on this issue alone. However, there's another reason I'm bringing this up. I've seen this kind of treatment before of animals, and it's ironic. I was going to talk about this anyway until this came up, because I had no idea this was going on. I knew the homeless conditions in Los Angeles were bad, and I've heard a lot of people talk about it. I never heard about this because, like I said before, there are other things now. There's a program which I just heard about from a family member, as a matter of fact, not too long ago. It's televised, and there's a whole program based around. I think there may be even a show around it where pets for parolees or pets for parole, something like that. They're basically people who are incarcerated. That I think it's for people who aren't going to be serving life sentences, I think, but are going to be incarcerated for a while still, and they put them with a dog of some kind that is in a shelter, and they have them take care of them, have them train them, have them work with them to integrate them into being able to be comfortable with people that would adopt them, and it's good for the prisoners in that it gives them a companion who I've seen some of the clips and some of the video from this show now, and they're really emotional. These are people that are hardened criminals, at least to the point that they have committed some kind of serious crime, and they are almost left in tears in some points when something happens, or they are giving the dog back to the shelter, or giving them to another family, or whatever it might be, and in some cases it's just these people are because I've mentioned this before. I had a family member who was imprisoned for a long time. I've told the story. You don't have. I mean, you can. I'm telling you what I've gathered based on. I've read the whole criminal record. I've read transcript from the trial. I've read almost everything that I can associated with the case. This person was charged for something way, way, way more severe than was deserved. There was a prosecutor who was extremely, extremely aggressive in the way that he presented the case, despite the fact that the defendant and the victim were the only two people in the house at the time. There would have been no one else there to be able to tell any kind of accurate telling of the situation based on the actual events that happened. This was in the late 1980s, so we're not in the middle of a the forensic kind of environment we have today. But they were more interested in the actions, and this family member is somebody who has had a physical disability that has been very, very severe since he was born, and also as not really mentally, I wouldn't say mentally retarded in any sense, but I would say that because of his condition, a little difficulty with typical cues, a little slow to pick up body language sometimes, or the type of demeanor that somebody has. Not really good at picking up on social cues like that, but not in any sense low functioning in any kind. Not like not high functioning autistic type of individual, but somebody that just has maybe it's a learning disability, maybe it's because of this his speech is a little strange, but he speaks and communicates very well for the condition. And anyway, so I mean, this happened when I was literally 2 or 3 years old when the case when the event happened, and then when the trial happened, I was not much older. He went into prison when I was 4 or 5, maybe, and was there for 23 years, I think. And since he was put there, since I was at least 5 or 6 years old, I'd been going with my family to visit, and so I grew up literally with a close family member who was serving serious prison time. Visiting rooms were a pretty constant part of my life growing up. So, I'm a lot more familiar with the justice system of California than a lot of people are. I've been in a couple different prison visiting rooms, and I even mentioned this on a show before. I've been really interested in criminal justice and in different real life crime cases, different prison gangs, different street gangs, the structure of gang leadership, how gangs get started, and who takes on leadership role, all kinds of aspects of the criminal justice system and of criminals in America and criminal activity. I was really, really interested for a long time. I still am, but I was really focused on it for a long time, and I think it was because of that, I've said this before, that he was able to kind of open up to me about being in the actual prison conditions that he was in, and he's told me far more, I think, than he's told anybody else about some of the experiences he had in while he was in prison. And it's amazing he was able to kind of keep himself removed. I think it was probably because the disability gave him a reason to not be as useful as an average inmate would be to, a gang leadership. And he also was very upfront, and it's like, I'm not here to rat on anybody. I'm not here to, get anybody else in trouble. I'm here to do my time and go home. That's what I want. So I don't want to cause any trouble, and I don't want to I don't want to be put in trouble by anybody else. So he had like almost 0 on his record. The only thing, ironically, and this is funny, well, not ironically, this is funny that this came up though, was during one particularly hot summer, he had a roommate steal a fan, I think, from one of the jobs he was working, and brought it to their cell, and he didn't know where it came from. He just saw his roommate brought a fan to their room, and it was hot as hell, so he wasn't going to complain. But because I was in their cell and he didn't say anything to rat out his cellmate, he was written up for this fan that was in. That was like the literal only thing on his criminal record after he was put in prison. It was so stupid, but that was the bad behavior. And so it's amazing he was able to pull that off. But still, just even being in that position. The riots that go on, the gang hits that go on, the types of schemes and the way drugs are passed, the way paraphernalia is passed, cell phones, anything like that, anything of value that is kind of passed around. There is a method that it's able to happen in a prison, and it's incredible the kinds of resourcefulness that some prisoners are able to use to actually do that kind of thing. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because, once again, this is about the idea that, once again, if my family member could have been involved in this program, I'm sure he would have absolutely jumped at the chance. He loves pets. He loves animals. He loves dogs. This does seem like the kind of thing that really would be one of those few things that you would see the humanity in almost anybody when they immediately connect with an animal of some kind, especially dogs for some reason. Now, I also really like cats as well. I'm a dork, but yeah, I really like cats too. But dogs I can really see, especially with people in prison, when there's the qualities of a dog with a individual, in particular a man, and a man even involved in some kind of criminal life, they're going to react to that totally differently than anything else that might have ever happened to them. They're going to see that living thing as something totally different than people, and by extension, some of their emotions that they would never let out for anyone else would come out for a dog that they were able to look after and take care of for a long period of time. So it's an amazing program. Those things exist. Those things are out there. They are programs that have been successful. So there are alternatives out there to just shoving them in a kennel and then waiting some amount of time and then killing them. There are issues, of course, when there's like serious neglect. Those cause the biggest level of damage to pets and dogs in particular. But yeah, regardless, I whatever you have to do, even if you have to, I would rather the city have to take the dog and give us the bad news that they had no choice but to put him down than to leave them with these fucking monsters for a second longer. I really don't give a shit. The last thing these people should be around is any other living thing. Kill yourself if you want to. Go ahead, have fun, knock yourself out, and don't wake up. But stay the fuck away from any other living thing. Just stay the fuck away. Disgusting, fucking demonic. And the reason, like I said, there's another reason, and it's because this might sound weird at first, and it has to do almost with the name of the episode is related. I Want to Be the Pupper. That was the name of the first video Mr. Mediker put out on this subject, aside from A Boy and His Dog, which was kind of an introduction to it. But I'm going to probably have to do a show or a short series about this. I might even make this outside of my normal live stream show, because I hinted at this before. Cecil McFly did a show about this, or did a couple of videos about this They're both really long, and the third one was after the event happened. But there was a there was a scandal that happened around 2018 around the furry community with a group of a sort of subset of people who were essentially labeled zoo sadists. They were not just zoophilic, meaning they had their they got their jollies from shagging the pets, shagging dogs, whatever. There was a popular YouTuber who really became the face of this because he was the most popular individual involved in terms of public profile, Kiro the Wolf, and he was not anywhere near the most despicable person in this group. But just for frame of reference here, this was a furry who had been on YouTube for quite a long time, was popular enough to be considered, kind of like a figure that was representative in some way of the furry community on YouTube. And so when this first happened, there was a group of furries that kind of circled the wagons around this guy. Like, hey, no, he didn't do anything wrong. And then more information started to come out, and it's like, oh, look at the room in this picture. Look at the wall. Look at the wall sockets. Look at the shoes he's wearing. Look at it, and it's all starting to match up and match up and match up. And it's like, okay, there's no fucking way in hell that he's telling the truth about this. Not to mention, these sick fucks use Telegram to communicate, and Telegram is actually incredibly difficult if you're trying to come at it from the outside in and try to break into it or hack into it some way. It was kind of meant as a communication platform that was extremely secure. Like, people in Russia who are dissidents use it to communicate. That's how strong it is at holding up to being able to be impenetrable. Usually anybody that does get in to see something that they're locked out from is by them having to do something where they trick the person into leaving their account open or active, and then luring them away while they access the computer. And sure enough, that was the way that this case broke. There was a real sack of shit who, by the way, ended up getting a nice long prison sentence that he's still serving, who is kind of a ringleader of this group. And and not really ringleader, but somebody who is a key individual by coordinating and linking up with almost every other individual in the group. So most of the people that were discovered to be involved in this shit was somebody he was in direct contact with. So that was one reason. The other reason is these sick fucks, and I wouldn't put this past, because when you see this kind of shit, these are people who, and bear in mind, these homeless fucks, they are also zoophiles as well in some cases. Like, they abuse their animals any way you can imagine in that too. They're not only like these people in this leaked group of furries. They weren't just harming dogs. They were harming. They were doing things to kids as well. That's just kind of to blow the lid off the whole thing. They were abusive to children as well. These are sick, disgusting, subhuman individuals who they're not. They don't. They engage in this sort of activity because they're not interested in anything that you would consider to be a close relationship. They are interested in having some sort of control over a situation that they can say that they feel like they're in a powerful position in, and it's it's an exercise in exercising that control over something else that they can control, do whatever they want, which is why they often are into bondage and you know, any kind of fetish that involves handcuffs or tying up or whatever. It's all sick shit. It's all very, very disgusting. But you know, that's the way that these fuckers and this sack of shit who is organizing this group was secretly kind of targeting his nephew for the same kind of shit. And not only was he doing that, but he was kind of doing his best to covertly get any kind of shit he could that other monsters in this group wanted. Like, you know, let's say they wanted some kind of pictures or video of this nephew, and he would accommodate. That's the level of disgusting shit these people are involved in. That, like, there's nothing that's too inhumane, that's too demonic, that's too fucking just I mean, we're beyond the realm of mentally disordered and law-breaking activity. We're in the realm of manifest evil. Like, I have no other way to describe it. This is evil manifest on Earth in the most raw and pure form you can imagine. The types of things they did and were accused of doing, that's for the next video. But the reason I'm bringing this up now is because look, when I started this channel, I said that because of Cecil McFly's series, and because Mr. Mediker did this originally, when this first happened, and he had to do this in a couple shows too, because he was just getting too fucking angry and sick to his stomach. Even a guy like Mr. Mediker couldn't handle it in one go. He had to split this up because he was getting too frustrated, too sick, too disturbed to continue reading this fucking shit. And so he had to do it in 2 episodes. He cut the first stream and he was like, I'm done. I can't do anymore. And I respect the hell out of Mr. Mediker, of course, and I'm so glad he brought this. But I want to make sure that nobody forgets about this shit. That this, you know, and that was why I referenced Cecil McFly's series, because I was extremely grateful that nobody was going to forget about this, that watched this video, because this is the kind, like, a lot of people put it this way, and I'll just go through the process because I don't necessarily agree, but I can see why they think this way. For a long time, furries were really ridiculed like hell. They were scorned and kind of the butt of the joke on the internet for a long time, rightfully so in a lot of respects, to some extent. But after a while, the novelty kind of wore off. The bronies started popping up, and a lot of people have attributed that as a reason why nobody was kind of paying attention to or criticizing furries for a while anymore, because bronies were so goofy and so weird and so cringy and just a very, very strange bunch that they kind of distracted people away from the furries to kind of pay more attention to bronies, and they were the butt of the joke for quite a while. And while there was that sort of period of people that were no longer like looking at this group and paying more attention to another group, people have kind of theorized that that was why this was kind of because embracing the idea that, hey, we could dress up like retarded mascots all we want, and nobody's going to even make fun of us anymore for it. Great, cool. That was a rationale behind how people kind of came to the idea that that was why. I don't really think that's necessarily true. I think that this was too contained to be. And bear in mind, though, that furries have been known, like, so, okay, let's just get down to brass tacks. The reason I'm bringing this up, and I'm talking about that part, is because, once again, lo and behold, first this goes back to Charlie Kirk and his killer, who, as I thought this might be coming because of the descriptions of his quote-unquote lover or whatever, some transgender individual who was a furry as well. And that was why I mean the whole Yiffenhell fur fags quote. That's in reference to that as well. That event, but also because when that broke, I was like, oh man, okay. I am going to guess that this is going to kind of be another event where furries are going to be spotlighted. One of two things is going to happen. Either everyone's going to take a look and they're going to see what absolute sick, twisted monsters are kind of always this black underbelly to the furry community of people. Because in 1993, there was a group called the Burned Furs, came out amongst the furries, who recognized that in the group there was already this tendency for degenerate sexual activity that was starting to take a hold and really start to be almost permitted, but certainly overlooked by everyone in the community, literally everyone. And this group, the Burned Furs, were actually the first attempt at trying to kind of recognize, hey, no, we're not like this. This isn't us. We need to root out people who do sick shit or especially do anything illegal, and we need to get them out of this group because we don't want to be associated with any of that shit. Unfortunately, they were unsuccessful. I don't think they really recognized the level of sickness or the indifference that was kind of provided by people that didn't really care as long as people were fine with them dressing up like their little fucking animal mascots and then running around all over the place and doing what they wanted. As long as they got to do the things they wanted to do, they didn't care what everyone else was doing. If they were torturing dogs or they were molesting children, they didn't care. And so this, unfortunately, that group dissolved. But that really was, all the way in fucking 1993, was the first attempt. And there had been some other, smaller but not anything successful attempts. It wasn't until this event broke with Kiro and this group of Zeus sadists that in 2018, the first real serious look was given to these fucking monsters, and they were like, wow. And this was a massive, massive dump of tons of gigabytes of data, of messages, of photos, of videos, of all this shit, and it is unbearable to go through. This is like, and I caution, you can go looking for it if you want. Kiwi Farms had a huge thread on this shit. Ironically, too, there was a Cuban guy, Wolf, who was considered by many people, I actually think there was somebody else, but considered by many people to be the worst of the group. He was absolutely responsible for some of the most inhuman shit to go on. And he was caught by the Cuban government, but later released. There's no real animal cruelty laws in Cuba. It did cause a massive protest for the Cuban people that actually came out and demanded that, to the extent they could demand, that there be animal rights laws in the country. I don't think there was obviously much success because that country is struggling for their own rights to do anything. But it was a beautiful sentiment for as long as it lasted. Unfortunately, I don't think there was much other than that. Now, the last I heard, there were people that knew this guy's fucking address, were lined up outside his home, were protesting there, and I was very happy to see it. However, I don't know what happened after that. I know that there was no action taken by the government, and that was really disappointing because it was really hard to even find out who that guy was. But some internet sleuths were able to figure it out, and really nail this guy. He tried writing some excuse note that he was trying to talk about how, oh man, death metal music and other shit made me do it. Like, it was just excuses. It was just fucking pathetic excuses. The dark web and death metal music made me a Zeus sadist, fucking degenerate, monstrous demon who fucking got off on the most sadistic, evil shit you can imagine. But there were a few arrests. Not only the guy I mentioned before, but there's this weird fat fuck who looks just like every atypical fucking dork you can imagine. Neck beard, long, scruffy, oily ass hair, handful of fucking pimples, and a big round fucker. But he ended up getting busted. But the problem with a lot of it was, laws even in the United States around animal cruelty do have a statute of limitations, unlike anything you do to people, obviously. But I honestly don't think that should be the case, because that can show, the few people who are around, because this is a dark subject regardless, but it's a very taboo subject still, obviously. So the amount of researchers in this, there are very few, but the few that have talked about it do mention that because of that proclivity to be in control and feel powerful, and that's really what they get off on, they do naturally kind of have this tendency to not only abuse animals, but to abuse children as well. That's kind of there's a link there that is just naturally a part of the fantasy that comes up from people this fucking disgusting. So the reason that I'm going into this is because to be finally blunt and honest about this, because of the whole thing with Charlie Kirk, and because furries were being discussed, and everybody knows at this point what transgender ideology is. Everybody knows now, because it's been politicized, what it means to be part of the LGBTQ, and all that shit. But the furry thing is obviously not nearly as discussed, and it's still a subculture online. So there's still a lot of people that have no idea what you're talking about. And honestly, guy, I'm glad he did it. Michael Knowles was apparently, he even mentioned this on the show. Him and his producers had been looking for a long time for a furry who they could talk to, who would discuss the community and everything on everything that went into the whole culture and lifestyle on the show. And he said he'd been looking for almost a year, and no one had ever accepted. Either had come out and said no, or had just kind of shut down and not answered. But he finally got someone to go. And I'll say this much: this guy that he had on his show, he was a kid, and he had definitely not been with this group for very long. He hadn't had his fucking mascot hat for very long. He seemed like the kind of guy who was coming from a perspective of someone young, naive, and a little bit, even to his own admission, someone who had some kind of condition on the spectrum. He wasn't all fully there. And he was like early on kind of into the sort of kind of art style that's used by a lot of artists in that group to kind of get people's attention, and he liked that kind of sort of thing, so he gravitated towards the group, and they are so like kind of taboo to talk about, that there's a kind of an interest from people from the outside looking in when you know nothing literally about the group, and because when you're young and naive, obviously you're going to kind of gravitate towards the sort of rebellious kind of thing. His parents obviously didn't approve of the idea, and yada yada yada. But the main thing I noticed was that it seemed like this guy was cutting off at the pass any attempt to discuss anything unlawful, or in particular when it came to sexually deviant behavior of any kind, especially with children or anything like that. But even just any kind of fetish kind of activity that goes on with these sickos is like, he was really trying to downplay it. He was really trying to, and to be honest, I just don't think he knows the extent of it. Maybe he does. But if he does, he's not. Like, it sounded to me like he talked to some people who were like, well, whatever you do, don't really go into detail about it. Because he mentioned this. Michael asked him at one point, why do you think when we tried to find a furry, why do you think it was so hard? And his answer was, I do believe to the extent this is true, but I also think there's another motive. What he said was that because the Daily Wire is an openly pretty pretty down the line right wing organization, obviously, that and the furries are most definitely, almost entirely made up of left wing people. He ran the stat by the kid that the furries are when you have seen when he's seen surveys done at different furry events that there's like a 90% rate of people who identify as not straight, and only 10% identify as straight when they're asked that question. And since that's such a radical different, it's like an inversion of the population. It does kind of raise an eyebrow, like, why? What does this have to do with that sort of thing? And on the face of the, on its face value, like nothing. But when you find out a little bit more about the degeneracy that goes on with these groups and the kinds of shit that they talk about when it's just furries and the doors are closed, you recognize, okay, this is kind of like a gateway into more extreme and more disgusting fetishes, more extreme fetishes, more fetishes that are not just taboo but illegal. So, and like I said, there's you know, when people talked about the stuff that was going on, the abuse that was going on of animals and of children, this was extreme. This was extremely. I'm not discussing it specifically on this show because I don't want to go into this territory, but I'll just say that this is some of the most disgusting shit I've ever heard in my life. I've never heard of a more demonic group of people in my life. This is literally like taking a supervillain that you might read about. This is like, it's like if Jigsaw was real in real life, but only went after pets instead of people. Like, for some reason, I can't believe how the levels of like complete removal of anything that could be merciful or have any ounce of humanity left inside of them to act like anything anywhere close to this level. So because the kid, whether he was told or not, whether he was coached or not, whether he was deliberately doing this to defend the furry community or not, you know, I don't necessarily blame the kid, but regardless, it's not the full story. It is not the full picture. There's unfortunately a real story, and it's a deeper, and it's a far, far darker story. And I did, like I said, when I first started this show, this idea ran through my head that if this ever came up, if there was ever a sign that I saw that was about furries that were going to attempt to be to get the stigma off of the group, or to get some position where they could be more accepted in general society, and kind of just look at the past and say, yeah, that's all in the past, though. That's not, because I can tell you, no, it's not. Not enough people directly responsible with proof and evidence of what they did. Not enough people were held responsible for what they did. Too many people got away with, and including the one went by Tim Wynn, who I consider, in my opinion, but even Wolf, the guy I would obviously say is a clear second. Neither of them ended up getting any kind of charge whatsoever. And so, because of the lack of enough punishment combined with the type of evil that we were seeing, I have a strong and serious feeling that they either went right back to what they're doing, or, if they're for a while a little paranoid, but that slowly dropped into a level that was no longer concerned nearly as much, and it's been enough time now to where they could bury it. And there's two, looking at what's happening in L.A., on Skid Row with the bums in broad daylight, not just with the pets, but even just this type of lifestyle that's led that way. And when we look at the last administration and what they encouraged, people to come in through the border with no recourse whatsoever, no punishment, nothing, invited in, combined with the tolerance for the unhoused, or the whatever fucking stupid term they come up with now. Sorry, that there's too much that was overlooked. There was too much done in the name of defund the police and poor George Floyd and all the other fucking horse shit we were expected to swallow for 4 years under that ridiculous administration. And because of that, all that stuff combined, as well as Charlie Kirk and him, and the guy Tyler Robinson being in a relationship with a fucking furry, and him being capable and responsible for murdering a guy in cold blood in the middle of an event on a campus in the United States, being connected to a furry. There's just too much there. And so because of all of this, I am going to do a sort of a reminder event, another look from my perspective. I'm going to do, I can't tell you exactly when, because I really don't know. But this is already at a point where I'm not willing to tolerate this without at least making sure that everybody that I can get that would watch will be able to see exactly what I'm talking about, what these people do, what they're capable of, and what they've gotten away with, and then take a good hard look at what's going on right now and what has been happening in recent events, and whatever I can do to blow it fucking wide open, I will do that to the best of my ability, and just hope that enough people see it to where they're aware that no, you don't just allow these people into polite society. You don't accept these people as just a marginalized group that are no, these people are everything that you would despise and be disgusted and absolutely not allow in your neighborhood whatsoever. Like, this would be kind of people you would make sure were run out of anywhere you would be going. And so I want to make sure that I can do my part on that regard, because like I said, this is getting too much already. And I can't tolerate this kind of shit. I can't. Anytime they have popped up in the past, or anyone like this has popped up in the past, we've seen what they're capable of, and I'm not willing to stand by and let them do it again and make excuses for it again and have to listen to that sick shit all over again and not have at least done something that in any way I could to shine a light on it again and make sure that everybody gets a good fucking look at it. So, sorry for the graphic and not such a, that's a downer for people watching, but good news, if you're watching on Rumble, I am going to do one more segment. It's kind of a thank you guys, because, man, you guys have been showing up much more than I expected. So there's another reason, but I'll get to that when we in the YouTube segment. So thank you on YouTube for watching. Really appreciate it. You guys showed up in numbers last time, too. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. But unfortunately, there's another freaking reason why I'm going to have to do this one just on Rumble, which I'll just be talking about now. So, but in any case, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys on the next one. So take care, and peace out. Later. Now.